Oh, it damn well hurts.
Certainly it hurts.
Well, what's the trick then?
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
You get bonus points if you can tell me what movie that was from. 100 internets. Yes, I'm sorry. I don't want to offend the All-Father by being late. Late to my own birthday. No, it's not my birthday. Lawrence of Arabia, you're correct. Tim, you go to the head of the class. Well, welcome to the midweek live stream. I kept promising you I was going to do it. Well, here we are. And away we go. Nope, sorry, I don't have Ned in today. I wish I did. All right, here we go.
Boy moms, boy dads, anybody helping boys? If you want them to be resilient and to be able to weather the storms of life, you can't teach them to be tough. What, you say? Aren't resilience and toughness the same thing? Well, I'm glad you asked, because no, they ain't. Toughness is when we teach our boys to shut down all the things they feel and to ignore the sensations in their body in order to present as non-feeling or numb. Resilience is when we teach our boys what it is that they're feeling and how to use those feelings and sensations to navigate the world around them. When we raise tough boys, we cut them off from what they feel. It's like a callus. Yeah, sure, if you poke it, it doesn't hurt as much. But if you slice it open, guess what it can't do? It can't heal because there is no blood flow. And without blood, there's no repair. And without repair, there's depression, there's alcoholism, there's drug abuse, there's gambling, there's disconnection from the people that they love. Check out the work of Dr. William Pollack from Harvard University. The Boys and Men Clinic
Maybe not.
there is fabulous, and his book, Real Boys, is an awesome guide. Good luck.
Good, friends. Good luck. Good luck with that. Greetings. Hello. Salutations. It is the Wednesday edition of The Rational Male, and I am flying by the seat of my pants. This is going to be like when I do my midweek shows, I kind of have to have the caveat of I reserve the right to be as casual as I possibly can. It is hot as hell in here today. Welcome. Did you like that? Yes, I'll put the logo on. Thank you for the reminder. Thank you, dear. Thanks, Mom. There we go. How's that? I got a lot of overlays today, so we can work with that. I realize I'm probably going to be stepping on Fresh and Fit's time slot here, but I got no other choice but to do it at this time today for a variety of reasons. I really wanted to get into. I have a common question from a lot of people when they want to ask me, like, Rollo, where do you get your information from? Like, show me the sources cited, right? Show me the sites you get stuff from. Give me the information. And I try to be as meticulous about that as I possibly can. I've been doing this for a very long time, as probably most of you know. So I have over the years collected a lot of research, a lot of articles, a lot of research, like peer-reviewed research, independent meta studies, right? Meta research, like if you don't know what a meta study is, it's like a study of a bunch of studies, right? So I include that. I think one of the things that I got in the habit of doing when I was in college was you had to be very meticulous about like where you're going to get your sources and everything else. But I think today, you got to remember that was when I graduated 2004. That was a long time ago. And so now I think a lot of people, it's easier to sort of like dismiss sources. It's easy to dismiss studies. And you can most likely find any kind of study you would like to back up whatever the hell you want to these days. And I can remember, I I hate to go Aaron Clary on you, but I remember back in my day, we actually had to go and look things up in the library, and we did have access to the internet, of course. Yes. But it's not the internet of like 2002 was not what it is in 2022. So just putting that out there, and there's a lot more to select from. I've always said this is that it's pretty tough to do the elevator pitch for the red pill. And the reason for that is it's so multidimensional. And I know that sounds like a buzzword, but it's true. Like there's so many like subfields you kind of have to be a semi-expert at, or at least like know what the hell you're talking about, or have some kind of interest in it. So like, again, I do not pretend to be an endocrinologist, a neurological brain surgeon. I don't pretend to be any kind of clinical psychologist for sure. I have a degree in behaviorism, and I have a degree in I have a bachelor's of fine arts as well. Thank you. Go tell Cappy that. And yes, like I said, we're going to be jumping around here today. So again, this is the casual cast. In fact, it's so casual that I'm still trying to get the f-stop right on the camera right now. There we go. Is that better? I think that's better. Hopefully my sound is good. Yeah, that intro was from Lawrence of Arabia. Very good. I thought it was, I picked that up because I just watched some snippets of that recently, and I go, damn, that was a good movie. And that one section in there I thought was pretty profound. People always tell you, don't bother watching fiction. Which, by the way, Lawrence of Arabia is not fiction. It's actually based on a true story. But there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of profound kind of, let's say philosophy. I think there's a lot of truth in certain works of fiction. Particularly, like you'll see me like quote like Frank Herbert from like Dune. I think there's a lot of really good stuff that's in there as well. What's this? Okay, good start. We're already there. Dung is fun. When I opened up and let my feelings out, the number one question that they say is, who hurt you? Yes, of course, because you're copying to vulnerability. I'm going to go back to this now. By the way, I don't know who this broad is right here. We're gonna kind of pick our way through this just a little bit, but I wanted to give you a good background before I jump into emotionalism. And you'll hear me talk about this quite a bit. And I'm just getting back to, let me finish this thought. I have a lot of sources that I've collected over the years, and a lot of it is kind of boils down to emotionalism versus empiricism. And if you've read my fourth book, Religion, there's actually, it was a couple of chapters in there, but one of the chapters that I'm thinking of right now is sort of the believers versus the empiricists. And I don't mean that to like shit on religion, and I don't mean that to kind of to kind of flame, I guess, magical thinking. And I think even though term magical thinking gets don't worry, we're going to talk about Tate. We're getting to the Tate part today too. Yeah, so there's more Tate information. I got more stuff for you here. So when I am relating things, it's usually from my background in doing my own research, because I have a keen interest in this kind of thing. And so I've been accused, and I probably will continue to be accused of like just going and hunting for the data that I want to see. Well, I have had things change around for me quite a bit. I have, I don't say flip-flopped, but I've certainly changed my mind about things over the years. Like I said, I've been doing this for about 20 years. Most recently, actually, I was talking with Myron and Fresh, and of course, they were the ones telling me, hey, it's all about brand management today. The way that Game and Pickup Artists and Mystery Method and Neil Strauss and all those good guys back in 2002, a lot of the principles, the fundamentals are still there, but the context is gone. And so, a number close, a KISS close, an F close, or whatever close, that doesn't count for very much in 2022 these days. And so I had to change my mind about that. I had to kind of like, they're right here. And I've watched it sort of unfold before my eyes. Oh, thank you, Dr. Thunder. Hey, by the way, Dr. Thunder, great musician. I've been on his show before. I love me some Dr. Thunder. By the way, the Trial of Ascension, the new EP, was released on Monday, on the 29th. So it is available on Spotify, Apple, iTunes, I believe. It's also on, you can go get it on YouTube right now if you want to go listen to samples and everything. We're going to be doing, me and the band are going to be doing a in-studio Q&A on this, right here on this channel, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, and I believe we're going to do it about 1 p.m. Pacific, so that will be 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll do that on Saturday from the rehearsal studio, so I'm going to try to do a live remote out there if I can make the audio work. We'll be taking questions. Please, like, keep the red pill stuff to a minimum, because we're just going to be talking about like how we sort of got together and what these songs are about and what we're about. So, because we've never done anything like that before. So a lot of people keep asking me about, like, the musical side of things it's my interests anyways. So I'm going to give you that show. Anyways, getting back to what I was saying, the emotionalism versus empiricism is a recurring theme. Certainly in my, thank you. I don't know if I'm the new top. I'm not the top G. I'm the OG. OG. But the idea of, how our brain works versus instinct, emotion, and reason. You guys have heard me talk about this before. In fact, I have this still up. Where'd it go? There we go. This is what's known as the Triune brain theory, and this is going to feature a little bit today. I've used this before, so you guys can check this out. And this is an old theory, by the way, and it's been updated, I think, really for the 21st century. The triune brain theory is that there are sections and there are parts of our brain. Again, I don't. A caveat here, full disclosure, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not a neuro whatever. I'm not a brain surgeon, right? It's not brain surgery, okay? There's the lizard brain, which is towards the stem, okay? And you can see where the parts of the brain are associated with each of the sort of features or the complexities, I guess, of the human brain. And by the way, this can apply to higher life forms as well. It's not upper, primates, mammals, I think maybe dolphins and whales or something. Anyways, there's the lizard brain. Of course, that's when we always talk, and it sounds funny, but it's true. The alligator brain. That's the hind brain. Whenever you guys hear me refer to women's hind brains or the instincts or the lizard brain, I guess lizard brain, it sounds funny, but it's not an insult. This is actually a term. It's an open term. This is sort of the primeval kind of rudimentary brain. Okay. And that's where the stem is and sort of the base of the brain. Okay. So it's the brain stem and it's the cerebellum. This is where you get things like fight or flight and autopilot, right? So what this is the autonomous nervous system, like the way that you can breathe without really thinking about it. When you get hungry, things that are sort of triggered in you, that you don't really have to pay too much attention to. It's pushed to the periphery, but it also includes instincts. And I think that's really what I wanted to start with, because when I have written in the past about instinct, emotion, and reason, I have to, again, full disclosure, I came to that understanding through really doing research in the red pill rather than understanding what the triune brain theory was. I did not know what triune brain theory was until after I'd written those essays, and I'm, as God is my witness. But then I came upon this and I go, wow, now it makes sense. So that the lizard brain is really where the instincts reside. So as I've said in the past, if I throw something at you, you'll instinctively duck out of the way. Or if we have feelings of like revulsion to things like a dead body or something, or feces or whatever, anything that kind of like makes you want to hurl, that instinct right there to sort of to purge, to yak or whatever, vomit in disgust, right? Or to avoid certain things. And it can be as simple as, I don't want to get near that, corpse over there because it smells bad. And we have this innate revulsion response as a result of not wanting to get near dead carcasses because they have pathogens, right? So we want to avoid those things. Then there are things like mate guarding. Then there's things like jealousy. We can move up into emotions here, but the rudimentary parts of those more complex emotions begin in the instinctual side, the lizard brain, the hind brain. And again, this is my bonehead observations here. I'm sure there's going to be some neuroscientist who's going to try to come in and school me at some point. I'm sure they will. However, This is my understanding of it. So here we go. This is the instinctual side of things. So it's as I said, as it shows you right here, fight or flight. So when you're in a survival situation, that's what kicks in. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this before, how men and women have different sort of evolutionary instincts that prompt them to certain behaviors. And one of those, you've probably heard me talk about this. I want to say I talked about it last week, but I might have talked about it on Jedediah's show. And by the way, I was just on Jedediah Bila's show on Monday. It was only about 2 hours and 10 minutes or so. And it was an absolutely fantastic show. It's much, much better than the first one that I did with her when I was live in there. And I think she's dare I say she's coming around, right? Dare I say she's starting to have some sort of curiosity and interest in those kinds of things that I've been talking about. And of course, Andrew Tate has sort of popularized these things right now too. So we had a discussion about Andrew. We had a discussion about some larger, ideas from the manosphere, from the red pill awareness, my work, other people's work. So do go check that out. It's on Jedediah Bila's show. She's on Valuetainment, and I thought it was a really good show, and I've heard nothing but positive feedback this time. And no, she didn't talk over me. We actually had a really good back and forth on this one. I thought it was pretty even. So anyways, getting back to this, when we look at the lizard brain or the fight or flight side of things as autopilots and the autonomous behaviors, part of that is sexuality. There's also the emotional part of that, which we'll get to here in a moment. But there's a lot of sort of rudimentary triggers from the instinctual side of things. That's where, like it says, fight or flight, that's where your survival instinct is rooted in. That's where your jealousy or your mate guarding instinct starts from, and then it works its way up the brainstem. That's where sexual revulsion comes from. Another thing I think I've talked about in the past is like when we see people who are behaving in such a way that it makes us think that maybe they're drunk, or maybe they're not in their right mind, right? Like maybe they're insane, maybe they're talking to themselves, maybe there's something that's just off about that person. Women will often refer to that guy as being creepy, and I'll talk about that a little bit later too. Creepy to a man is different than a creepy to a woman is. I'm not saying that the creep factor isn't there for both. I'm just saying that it's prompted, the creep instinct is prompted by different things. And we'll get back to that. But that's another part of instinct. Instinct is the fastest way things work. So when I throw something at you, you instinctively jump out of the way. Okay. Or you flinch, right? Or you sneeze, or you could probably think of a few other just sort of knee-jerk behaviors that human beings do. That's where all that resides, and it's a part of the hardware, but it's also part of our firmware. And when I talk about the protector instinct in men, the protector instinct for women, I want you to, if you can, hold on to that one. Put that in your notebook, children, because we're going to definitely be coming back to that. I've mentioned this before. When men and women are in sort of like survival, like immediate, life-threatening, dangerous situations, men will tend to put themselves in harm's way for women that they don't even know. I usually use the illustration or the example of men who will put themselves in front of live ammunition in an active shooting situation. We can check that. We can see how that works. There's other ways that men are self-sacrificial or have this sacrificing protector instinct for women. And primarily, this is due to an evolved need to protect vulnerable, fragile children and vulnerable, fragile women who are the incubators of those children. Now, why am I saying that? Because we're going to get to another part here by our good friend, the Authentic Observer. And I don't know this girl's name, but we're going to talk about that in here in just a second, because she brought up a very interesting question, which is, you've heard me say this before, responsibility without authority is slavery. And she got very, very indignant and very, very upset about this. And I want to sort of clarify some terms here, because this is something I believe I've heard Andrew Tate refer to as well. This is one of those instances where I kind of have to go in and untangle the whole thing so people can get a better understanding of it, rather than, hauling off and doing these 30-second buzz clips to just show how outraged they were by that statement. Now, we've been talking about that since 2015. And by the way, no, I didn't come up with that statement. That is actually, the statement anyways, came from Turd Flinging Monkey. So Wait, let me give this up to, there you go. Give that up to Turd Flinging Monkey. And yes, I want to get him on this show. I've got the time. I will have the time once I get back from Connecticut next week, and I'm going to start having more guests on this show. I will be also, by the way, tomorrow I'll be on Torsha's show with Dr. Red Pill, Dr. Oz from Turkey. So we're going to have a pretty good discussion. I would presume we're going to have a really great discussion, actually, with Dr. Oz, whatever you want to call him, on Torsha podcast tomorrow. So you guys can go check that out. It will be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So that makes it, 2 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. So do check that out. So getting back to here, the triune mind theory. Now, the fastest part, like when I have talked about these in the past, the fastest process, these are really the ways, if you think about it, look at the lizard brain, the mammal brain, the human brain right there. Okay. Each one of these has it interprets like our reality in an instant, or it takes longer. Okay. Now you've probably heard me, or you've probably read this before. Whereas when I'm talking about the instinctual side, the lizard brain, that is the fastest processing of information that we have. So if you think about it in terms of, we have our sight, our sound, all the 5 senses that we have. What is the quickest way we can say, this is life or death? I better get out of the way or the bus is going to crash into me. I better escape the saber-toothed tiger. I better go, I'm hungry. I better go out and find some food. The fastest of these processes, of these interpretive processes, is the lizard brain and the instinctual side. It has to be, otherwise you're dead. It's pretty straightforward. The next one in line is the mammal brain, and this is the limbic system. This is emotions, memories, and habits, okay? This is where decisions are made, especially when it comes to emotional decisions. Now, the reason why they put decisions here is because, for the most part, people use their emotions to make decisions, right? Or we are prompted to make decisions by these emotions. Now, here's where things get dicey, okay? This is the limbic system. You can see that it's sort of the mid area of the brain. It's not quite into the gray matter of the brain just yet. So you're looking at where emotions at least originate. Now, there are different kinds of, there's base emotions, and then there's more complex varieties of those emotions. Now, there's a lot of disagreement, by the way, about what the base emotions are. Some people say there's only 5. Some people say there's 7. Some people say there's 12. It just kind of depends on whatever pop psychologist you happen to follow at that time. I think we can distill it down to 5, quite honestly. That's really where I come from when it comes to behaviorism and when it comes to emotion. But moreover, it's the habit side of things is where I kind of came into understanding the mammal brain. Okay. And again, this is emotions, memories, and habits. This is the limbic system. It's also, in a way, it's kind of like the subconscious as well. It gets a little bit dicey there too, because you can make a case for the gray matter, the larger side of things. But this is where emotion starts. So we've already got from instinct to emotion, and now we're going to get to reason in just a moment. But this is where emotions start. Now, I think one of the problems that most people have, especially this broad right here.
Boy moms, boy dads, anybody helping boys. If you want them to be resilient and to be able to weather the storms of life, you can't teach them to be tough. What you say, aren't resilience and toughness the same thing?
Only when you define them in terms of emotionalism. And where does emotionalism start? Emotionalism starts in the mammal brain. Okay, so we're going to get down to nuts and bolts here, because when you parse this stuff out, you will see just how much bullshit is being thrown at you on a daily basis when it comes to emotionalism. And that's really all this is an emotional appeal. Now, when we talk about emotions, you have to start from the position of understanding that emotions are not magic. They're not magic. It's not like, the Lord on high and angels came down and shined a light on me and I felt this way. And those feelings are some cosmic significance. And again, you've got this, we'll continue here with this bra. I don't even know what her name is. I'm sorry. I know she's like supposed to be some self-help guru, or she's a YouTube influencer, but it's all emotionalism. And this is what kind of got me on this, is because, as I've said in the past, we raise our boys as if they are defective girls. While how does that go? How does a female primary society, a gynocentric society, go about creating defective girls that are boys who are defective girls? How does that happen? Well, primarily it's because women teach in a different way than men would teach and we have this complete lack of men really in the education, certainly in public education right now, but we have a complete lack of men in education because it's not a sexy job to get into, and it's low paying, but it's desperately needed for our kids today. We always talk about, like, I had this conversation, and this is where I came up with this, by the way, with Jedediah, and we were talking about where do boys go to learn? When we talk about how you'll probably hear Cappy talk about this if you've read anything by Aaron Clary, you'll understand what I'm talking about here. Is like there's a lot of this kind of like we kind of shit on higher education right now, and I look at it in these terms as that I really feel bad about that. I want education to be better than it actually is, and it's not. And so when people ask me, they say, Rollo, you're married. How can you talk about marriage like this? You seem like you're really down on marriage. How can you be married for 26 years and claim to be happy and blah, 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 and talk about marriage the way that you do? And I keep coming back to the same reason for this, which is I'm not against marriage. I think marriage is a great idea. I'm just against the way we do it now. Well, we can take that the way we do it now and apply it to education as well. I really want you to be able to go to a good university and be a well-educated, be able to speak about a great many things, be somewhat educated on a great variety of topics. That's what education really is. It's not just about going and finding a good job, which, I mean, primarily that's why people go, but it's also about a well-rounded, quote unquote, well-rounded education. And that's really why I got into doing what I do. When I talk about the red pill, for example, and I say there's no elevator pitch for it because there's so much that is associated with it. There's endocrinology, there's neurology, there's psychology, there's evolutionary psychology, there's evo-bio, there's anthropology, there's even politics and religion and a whole slew of other things that can in some way be affiliated and some way dovetail into directly or indirectly intersexual dynamics. And so I have to at least have some kind of knowledge of each one of these situations or each one of these sort of arenas or these subfields that make up the greater whole of the red pill. And I have to be able to talk about them knowledgeably. And that's what gets me, because a lot of people tend to only focus on one area. So if I get into religion and I start talking about intersexual dynamics and religion, then people want to say, oh, well, I'm an expert on this and orthodox of this, and we don't do that in my culture and yada, yada. I want to know about that. I have a curiosity about that. I want to be able to speak knowledgeably about that. But where do I go to learn that? I can't go to university because you'll come out a communist, right? That's what we tell our kids. You'll be in arrears, man. You'll come out with $100,000 worth of student debt, which, well, maybe now $90,000 worth of student debt. And you have got this useless degree, and that useless degree is only valued in terms of the job that you are qualified for once you get out of school. So if you got a master's degree in gender studies, you're probably not going to be using that in your job. Likely, it's very, very likely, ladies, that you won't be using that in your job. And I'll leave that conversation to a professional like Aaron Clary. However, I do know this, and I have a keen interest in this because it relates to the red pill on whole. But again, where do young men go to get educated? Where do young men go to have a knowledge of a great many things? Well, apparently it's not college, because we dissuade them from going to college. We say either, and we don't even now we don't want to go to the military, because now the military is completely woke, at least here in the United States, anyways. And then, well, where do they go? Go learn a trade. Okay, but that's one thing. You've learned how to weld. You've learned how to be an electrician, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or you're a plumber. Hey, great. Awesome. There's a lot of by the way, you want a high paying job that you only need a high school diploma for? I just discovered this. Get into elevator repairing or repairing escalators. There's a lot of money in that. Just being the line guy to go and do that kind of stuff. Mostly men and mostly just high school educated. There's a great many trades you can get into where you can make a good chunk of change. However, where do you go to get educated? Well, the answer to that is here online on YouTube, and that's going to be specific to whatever that person's interests are, because for the larger part, you're not going to have the interconnectivity of different classes that sort of relate from one class to another, and there's no real regimen or routine or any kind of like program for it, unless you make it's like self-guided learning, right? Okay, well, so there's that aspect of it. The other place that that young men get their education from is from women. From 78%, and it's higher in other countries, but in the United States, 78% of your teachers from preschool all the way up to postgraduate are going to be women. That's where you're getting your education from. You want to know why communism, socialism, and communitarianism sound so good, and we're discussing all that. Your daughter is, you know, this God-fearing Bible study girl that goes into college for 4 years, and she comes out looking like Lena Dunham with fuchsia hair and, you know, armpit hair. Okay, yeah, that you are right. But what are you going to do? Homeschool them, okay? And then what? All right, got it. And again, I used to be against homeschooling, but I am no longer against it. You want to know about another thing that I used to be for that I'm now against? There you have it. I learned my lesson. Thank you very much. You were right. So that's where we're getting this education. We're getting this education from women just like this. Where should you go? Come back.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because no, they ain't. Toughness is when we teach our boys to shut down all the things they feel and to ignore the sensations in their body in order to present as non-feeling or numb. Resilience, them to be resilient.
Okay, so well, this is fallacy number one, and I'll explain to you why. Men and women are different, dear. We're very different. We are more different from you than we are alike with you. We are not different species. We're not different animals, but we neurologically, physiologically are different than women. And that difference that that I'm talking about right now starts right here, right there in that midbrain, right there in the mammal brain. Because again, research shows that men and women's synapses are not the same. And I'm about to show you what I mean here in just a second. I've got some studies here. I wish I had them on tap for you, but now I got to go dig them up. So if you guys will be patient with me for 1 second, I will. There they are. And I will call a few of these things up. And there are, oh man, here we go. Where do we go? Brain differences in men and women. Remember when I was telling you how I had so much research on this kind of stuff? Well, here we go. This is the research that I have. Let's see. Where's the good one? There's a really good one here. Oh, here we go. Men and women born different in the brain. Gender agenda. This is actually from a 2019 article. Men and women are born to be different as experts prove brain differences begin in the womb. Now, I'll show you this here. Let me throw this up real quick so you can get an idea what I'm talking about. And share this for you. Here we go. This is one of the studies that I pulled this up for, I want to say I pulled this up for, I think it was positive masculinity is when I threw that, or maybe it was religion. Anyways, this is the article I'm referencing right here, but this is the Sun, but it references actual studies here. Okay. It's a question as old as Adam and Eve. Are women and men wired differently? A new study confirms that sexes really do have different brains and suggests these variations start in the womb. The conclusion is a controversial one, as experts think social influences are more important to distinctive ways that men and women think. Again, this is when I say there is a fallacy of social constructionism. This broad right here is talking about toughness and resilience and all this other great shit. Okay. That comes from a position of emotionalism. And that position is informed by one concept. Well, two, actually. The blank slate and social constructionism. The premise of women like this, or this, I'm saying women, I don't want to blame it on just women. It's also on guys who think in this way as well, who've adopted this as well. The premise is that boys are taught to tamp down their emotions. Boys are taught not to cry. Boys are taught to be tough. Boys are taught not to, they've got, drill sergeants for fathers, and we need to really just soften them up and just love on them and hug them and give them, give them warm fuzzies all the time. And that might sound like I'm mocking, but the only reason I sound like I'm mocking because that's all you hear. That's all you hear from this mindset. That's all you will hear from women like this. So where does that come from? See, that's where I'm fascinated by. Where does this understanding that she thinks this is self-evident? How come everybody else doesn't think the way that I do? Or we have a problem here, and young men are now, I know I'm going to get to this next one here. I already talked about this article. It was like more and more men are single and lonely and sexless, and that's not a good thing, because it affects women most affected, right? Well, the reason why women are upset about that right now is, first of all, it ruins their life plan because men won't cooperate with whatever the hell it is that women's priorities are. That's number one. And number two is it's based on the premise that men should agree that women's emotionalism is the correct way to think. And so when you see articles like this, we understand that it's not about social influences, and that it is actually a genetic difference between us. It is hardwired. It's part of the machine. It's part of that triune mind theory again. But scientists at New York University Langone say they have narrowed down a biological root after they took brain scans of more than 100 fetuses in the womb. Study author Professor Moriah Thomason said she was not surprised at the findings. Oh, really? There are many differences in the organization of male and female fetal brains. That's what I would expect, she told The Times. Keep going here. Her team investigated how connectivity was different in the growing minds of boys and girls. Scans were taken of 118 fetuses in the second half of pregnancy. One of the big differences was in connections between distant parts of the brain. Girls produced more long-range neuron networks as they matured in the womb. While it is impossible to know how this changes the way women think, differences in boys' brains were easier to decode. Their connections were found to be more changeable than girls. This may explain why men are more vulnerable than women, according to this professor. That, I think, is nonsense, but we'll come back to this. Males are more susceptible to environmental influences than female babies. Why is that? Because they're the ones that are out in the environment, and they have to be sensitive to those things. Okay. If that's true, that could partially account for the fact that male is more vulnerable and programmable. Okay. The finding breathes new life into the long-standing debate over male and female brains. Some scientists think differences in our minds are mostly shaped by social factors, while others believe we are born with them. Now, I will get to the part here. We'll get to, where do we go with that? I'll get to this part here where I will show you. I think do I have it up yet? The heritability, I don't have. Oh, yeah, I do. Here it goes. The 4 laws of behavioral genetics. Now, this right here is from Steve Stewart Williams. Okay. Evo Psych, Evo Bio Doctor. So this is like the real deal here. 4 laws of behavioral genetics. Law 1, all traits are partially heritable. Identical twins reared apart are more familiar than fraternal twins reared apart, who are more similar than non-relatives reared apart. Second law, the effect of the genes is larger than the effect of the shared environment. That shared environment being social constructionism. By adulthood, identical twins reared together are little or no more similar than identical twins reared apart. Ditto adopted siblings. Law 3, a lot of variance in behavioral traits isn't attributable to either genes or the shared environment. Identical twins reared together, shared genes plus shared environment, aren't identical. Law 4, most complex traits are shaped by many genes of small effect. There are no common genes that increase or decrease IQ by, say, 5 points, but there are hundreds, even thousands of genes that increase or decrease IQ by a tiny fraction of a point. So, again, when we talk about nature versus nurture, this is a pretty damning understanding in our new 21st century understanding that it is less about nurture and more about nature right now. So that's number 1. Let me get on to the next one here because I'm going to let her talk a little bit more. We're already kind of establishing here that there are physiological, neurological differences, psychological differences between men and women. One of those is that men tend to lead with rationality and reason. Women tend to lead with emotion. So when women are confronted with information, with prompts, with stimuli, right? Usually it goes down like this. Instinct is first, okay? Am I going to die or am I not going to die? Am I hungry or not hungry? Am I turned on? Am I not turned on? There is that instinctual side that fires first because that is the fastest process of the interpretation. Emotion is also very, very fast, but it is not as fast as instinct. Now I'll put this back up here so you can understand what I'm talking about here. So if you look at the triune mind theory, again, the emotional brain, the mammal brain right there, emotions, memories, and habits, that is a slower process than the instinctual lizard brain. Now, the slowest of all of them is the human brain, the neocortex. This is where language, abstract thoughts, imagination, consciousness resides, okay? Reason and rationality rationalizes. These are the process. That's the reason and rationalizes. That's the process for your gray matter. Now, of these, the learning side of things, the software side of things, resides in the human brain, in the human brain, the neocortex. The mammal brain, the center brain right there, that's where emotions are at. And then, of course, in the lizard brain, that's where the instinct starts, okay? Of those processes, the fastest process is, of course, instinct. The next fastest is emotion, because emotion is also a physiological, it has physiological origins. So when you feel fight or flight, that comes from an adrenaline rush, from getting your adrenal gland fires, and suddenly now you're hyper aware and you're ready to rock and roll. Or it could be you're happy, or it could be you're sad, or it could be you're depressed, or it could be you're angry. Those emotions are meant to prompt you from one state into another state. And this is where I kind of part ways with a lot of sort of touchy-feely feels before reals people, because what happens is we tend to turn those emotions into these magical, divine feelings, because they're very strong. I can understand why we would have done that in our ancestral past. When we feel something, or we hear music, or we see the Grand Canyon, or we're in awe of something, or we see this great, beauty of nature or something, we have a feeling about that. Or we see the person that we are in love with, or we see some hot piece of ass at the beach and we just want to hit that, right? We have this feelings that are associated with the environment and the stimuli and everything that we have to interpret. And we interpret that through our emotions. So when men get angry, that's the default emotion for most men. It's much easier for men to get angry because that is what served us as human males over the course of millennia, our evolution, our ancestral past. Jealousy, mate guarding, anger, happiness, arousal. If you think of all the it was the 7 deadly sins, each one of those corresponds to some physiological process that is also modified by emotion. And taken to their extreme, they can be very antisocial, and therefore they're the 7 deadly sins that think we need to keep in check, right? So there's sort of this metaphorical truth that goes along with that. I get it. You're right. You got it. Okay. Maybe the ancients were right about that, but the process and the roots of that truth, that metaphorical truth, comes from realized material truth, like real things. Okay. So when we're looking at oh, geez, thank you very much. Oh man, I got to get to Daniel. Thank you, Daniel, for that. God damn it. Daniel, let me get back to you. Hang on. I'll find you. Stay right there. I'm going to put you up. You guys get I get into doing videos and I start looking at, there you are. All right, Daniel, thank you very much. Give Rollo the respect he deserves. The red pill does not teach in shoulds. Rollo works on what is. The red pill is a tool, not a religion, nor is it an ideology either. Thank you very much. What'd you say? Is there a study about women that are more stressed, have a high likelihood of having boys versus girls? I have read, now I don't know anything about stress, but I have read studies that if there's more serum testosterone in the bloodstream or in the the larval stage of human development, it's going to turn into a boy that's going to be more like masculinized. Or I've heard studies, or I've read studies where they say that if there's not enough, then the kid turns homosexual. We're still sorting that thing out. And yes, before you start, I'll also read out the fact that I am aware of microchimerism, and the jury's still out on that. So you can come back to, well, maybe in another 5 or 10 years, I'll be able to do that show. But right now, I'm not going to be doing that show because honestly, I don't know enough about it, and I'm not going to pretend that I do know everything about everything. So I will get back to you when the jury comes back from that one. But thank you very much for that, Daniel. Much appreciated. Let me just get to these other ones that have been starred real quick. Where did this go? We are living in the age of emotional overemphasis. Yes, in a lot of different ways. Logic and rationale are suppressed for now. For now, until we get into survival situations, and then you'll see how quickly they're unrepressed. I nominate Rollo Tomasi to be the new top G. You got to spell it right though, TAUP. Then I will accept if you'll spell it correctly. Yes, microchimerisms. Yes. Here, by the way, I think the ugliest. Okay, if you don't know what microchimerism is, that's the idea that every guy that a woman sleeps with leaves some bit of DNA or genetic information in that woman's bloodstream that becomes a part of the child that she produces when your sperm actually gets together with it. So in a way, she's kind of the idea anyways. And this is the theory, is that the human body, a woman's human body, picks and pulls or takes the best of, or takes whatever it was of the DNA, the genetic material of all her former lovers, and in some way incorporates them or retains them in her body. As to whether or not that makes it into the reproductive process, I don't know. I still really kind of got to do my homework on that a little more. But if that is true, that means you, me, everybody else, we're all the sum total of all the guys that our mothers got with before we popped out of the womb. I think that's probably more like people want, like, guys love microchimerism because it says, oh, well, that's why women should all be virgins. Oh, I mean, okay, I understand that kind of, from a practical, pragmatic sense, I get that. But it also implies that you are the net sum of all the dudes your mom was hoeing around after before she got with your dad and you came out. So you have some like genetic components of all the lovers that she's had before you. Franken baby. That's it. You are the Franken baby. You're the Franken baby because your mother wasn't a virgin. Again, to be continued. Let me do I don't know everything. Oddly enough, I don't know everything about everything. I will find out, but I will find out for you. That's because I just work here, man. Getting back to our good girl here. I forget what her name is.
To be able to weather the storms of life, can't teach them to be tough. What, you say? Aren't resilience and toughness the same thing? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because no, they ain't. Toughness is when we teach our boys to shut down all the things they feel and to ignore the sensations in their body in order to present as non-feeling or numb. Resilience.
Okay, so what she's, I want to point this out here too while I got her for a moment. This is the basis, I think, that most women like to think how masculinity works. If you read my third book, which is Positive Masculinity, I go into a little bit more detail about this. And when we talk about how we are raising boys as if they're defective girls, part of the process of raising those boys to be defective girls is inculcating, is embedding into boys that their masculinity, that their male, what their sense of self, right? Their sense of male self, whatever it is that makes them male, is a fraud, that is inauthentic, that is disingenuous, that is just a mask that you wear. It is just an act that you put up. It's you fluffing your chest out, and you're not really like that because that's inauthentic. And you shouldn't think like that. Young Johnny, you shouldn't think like that. You shouldn't believe that you're all that because you have a penis instead of a vagina like Sally over here. And so there's this idea, and this, by the way, this started really kind of in the late 60s, early 70s with the militant feminists. And once women got into sort of the education system and started emotionalizing, for lack of a better term, the education system, That's when you see this idea that there's anima and animus. That's why I have a real problem with Carl Jung. Okay, that there's this male side, and this female side. And what was one of the first things that the early feminists, or the militant feminists of the late 60s, early 70s, post-sexual revolution feminism, one of the things they proposed from the get-go was that you need to get in touch with your emotions. You men are emotionally unavailable. You men need to express your feelings more. You need to be a more emotional person, a more emotional thing. And the problem with that is that men and women do not process emotion in the same way. How do we know that? Well, we have the research now. We didn't know it back in the early 70s, but we sure shit know now. Men and women do not process emotions the same way, particularly negative emotions, I should say. So when men express themselves emotionally, usually it's anger. Usually it's violence. Usually that's the behavior that spawned from it. It's avarice, it's stress, it's anger, it's frustration, which are frustration. That's really the more complex nature or more complex emotions that are rooted in anger. And most women will say, "Oh, that Rollo Tomasi, it's truthful, but it's anger," because women over the course of history have defaulted on the side of anger when it comes to dealing with men. That's why women get really scared, or women believe that men are going to be more hostile than they actually are. When a man raises his voice or a man has some sort of hostile reaction, that's an evolutionary response for women. That's why women fear walking across a dark parking lot. That's why women actually have some sort of, they default to the idea that a man is always angry. We talked about the Duluth model of feminism, and that is based, but if you don't know what that is, I'm going to just give you a quick rundown of that. That is the premise for a lot of laws that tell law enforcement, or it tells judges, or it informs battery shelters and things like. It informs the idea that is rooted in one thing, that men are always the aggressors. Men are always angry. Men will always default towards aggression and violence and anger, because that's our default. That's our go-to. And over the course of millennia, our evolutionary past, women have developed what's called the male anger bias. And what that means is it's better to err on the side that guy is pissed off and survive than to think that he's not and get busted in the mouth and to be killed. So there is this instinctive understanding that men are inherently violent. They're always the ones that are. And so what we've done is we've based policy on that. And so that's why the police officers will take you out of the house as a man. They'll take you out of the house before they'll take the woman out of the house, unless she's doing drugs or something that's illegal, right? But if there's a domestic violence call, or there's a domestic call, usually 9 times out of 10, it's the man that's going to the drunk tank, or he's going to jail, or he's going to go spend the night with his mom and dad, and they're going to remove him from the house. And we have essentially developed, let's see, for the last, I'm 30 or, well, I guess it was in the 80s. So about 40 years of legislation of law enforcement practices that presume that the man is the aggressor, the man is the pervert, that the man has the problem, that the man is the one who is going to default to anger. And whether or not that's true is kind of irrelevant, in the sense that we're always thinking still we want to in some way neuter or geld men because of that anger bias. So in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even right now, even 2022, your masculinity is a mask that you wear. It is inauthentic. It's not for real. Because if you were really the real you, you'd be more like a girl, Johnny. Because that's that's what a human looks like. It's caring and compassionate and understanding and sensitive, and it feels. It's not tough. It's resilient. Well, that will just make up some cock and bull, terminology for this. Well, how is being tough not resilient, and how's resilient not being tough? That's all just, it's semantics at this point. But the problem with all of this is that it makes the presumption that masculinity, or anything that when a guy tries to be tough, that it's inauthentic, that it's all bullshit, that it's a mask that he's wearing. That's why they want you to be vulnerable. Be more vulnerable. Let us in. And of course, what happens as soon as you do that, then everything, your game goes to hell, right? So I wanted to point that out here with this girl because this is all premised on the male anger bias, and that's also premised on the idea of social constructionism, and it's also premised on the idea that emotion should trump reason. That the where do we go? That the mammal brain should preempt the human brain. That the emotional side of your interpretive processes is more important, more magical, more significant than the neocortex, than the human brain, than the rational, reasonable side of your brain. And we see this constantly. We really kind of have seen this since the sexual revolution, where we prioritize the idea that we shouldn't judge anybody. We shouldn't be discerning. We shouldn't think, follow your heart and it'll never lead you astray. I would never judge you. Maybe you should, because if you had judged this person, or if you had put some reason and rationality into understanding the situation, maybe you wouldn't be dead, or maybe you wouldn't be in jail, or maybe your kids wouldn't hate you, or maybe there's other, and the list goes on. And generally, you can come back to the conflict between emotionalism and rationalism, or empiricism. Right? Rationality and reason. It is the limbic system versus the human brain versus the rational neocortex system. And that's where you want to talk about micro to macro. That's where this really comes down to, because the slowest process is the understanding the language, because it takes time to learn languages, right? Abstract thought, imagination, consciousness, reason, learning, rationality, mathematics, that would fall into abstraction. Okay. Which of those do you think that men have a greater, let's say, facility with than women do? The rational side, the reasonable side. So when I've said this before, like, because women are going to throw rocks at me and I'm all, here, you know what? Give it to me now, ladies, because I know exactly what you're going to say. Well, men are emotional too. The rational male. How many times have I heard that in the last 20 years? Yeah. Okay. So yes, I understand that men are emotional. They can be, especially today. It's more today and more in the last like 2 generations than at any other time, because they are the products of 4 generations of us saying, get in touch with your feminine side. Everybody has a feminine and a masculine side. You should be more feminine. Let's go back and read Dr. Jung, right? Anima and animus. We know it's bullshit now because we have the studies and we have the empirical scans and we have access to data that Carl Jung never had. And it's time to say he made some contributions, but let's move on. Instead of this bullshit about like, oh, you're being inauthentic, you're being emotional, blah, blah, blah. No. And we have to stop raising the next generation to be like that. If you want to change the core, you want to stop, save the West. It's not about getting back to church or living this moralistic lifestyle. You know where it starts? It starts in prioritizing reason over emotion. That's where you want to save the fucking world. That's where you're going to save the world, man. Because the battleground is right here between the mammal brain and the human brain, between the emotional system and the rational, reasonable learning system. And again, it takes a long time to develop intelligence. I'm not saying that the raw material is not there and that there is most definitely a genetic component to that, but it takes longer to learn things, to bypass our instincts. So when women say, oh, well, men are emotional, yes, because we have taught them over the course of 4 generations to prioritize emotion before reason. That's why they're defective girls. Our boys are taught as if they're defective girls. How do we teach girls? Emotion first. So boys, well, if you're going to be a more perfected human, we're going to have to teach you how to prioritize emotion before reason, to follow your heart, go with your feelings, not go with your gut, because your gut would be your instinct. Okay. But to go with your feelings, because it's all about feels, right? But it's not, because I can also show you studies how women are the ones who are the opportunistic sex. Well, they view love in an opportunistic perspective, whereas men tend to view love and emotional investment in an idealistic perspective. Okay. So because it's in men's best interest to do so. I'll explain to you why that is here in just a second, but let's keep going.
Is when we teach our boys what it is that they're feeling and how to use those feelings and sensations to navigate the world around them.
Did you catch that? We need to teach our boys what they're feeling. I I'm a little confused right there. So you're going to tell them how they should. What if I was to say, you know what, young lady, whatever your name is, miss, I'm going to tell you what you're feeling right now. I'm going to explain to you what it is you're feeling. Imagine how pretentious of me that would be to go and to mansplain what she's feeling. But it comes out of her mouth just fluidly. Oh yes. Well, we should teach boys what they're feeling and how they should process it. No, that's called brainwashing, is what that is. That's called indoctrination. That's called actually operant conditioning from the behavioral, Rollo, the behaviorist perspective. Here's the desired behavior, and here's how we're going to condition you. That's why I refer to blue pill as blue pill conditioning. We're going to teach you, we're going to condition you how to feel, what you ought to feel when you see these things. And to be a more perfected human is to think, feel, and experience life as a woman does, which is emotionalism before rationalism, before empiricism. How do I fit? You can even break this down into how women communicate with as versus how men communicate. Women communicate when it comes, the primary interest women have in communication is the context of it. It is, how does the communication make me feel? That's why women get together, just because they like to communicate. Let's go catch up at Starbucks, right? Let's set aside a time so that we can catch up, so that we can communicate together, because it feels good, and so maybe sometimes not good, but you get feels from the communication itself. Men tend to prioritize the content of that communication. What is the information? What problem am I solving? How do we build the bridge to go across that river? What's the challenge? What's the problem? What are the things that we need to do so that we can create the newest widget, right? What is it that we need to do? Men tend to be more interested in things, and women tend to be more interested in people. That is a biological reality. Go look at Dr. Steven Pinker's research on this. I think that's like the second or third thing he was talking about when he was getting into the inherent differences between men and women. And that was one of them. Men tend to be interested in things. Women tend to be interested in people. Why? Because women prioritize emotion before they prioritize reason and rationality. Now then, that is not to say that women are dumbasses. That is not to say that women can't do higher math. My daughter knows freaking calculus and trigonometry. Okay? You can teach a woman to be rational, just as you can teach a man to be emotional, or boys to be emotional. But which one do we prioritize? Which one is the correct way? Which one do we have to really work at to make them masters of mathematics, right? To teach them abstract thinking. And why is it that women tend to go for careers that are in communications, that are people skills? You hear this all the time. And again, I'm going to invoke the name of Aaron Clary one more time, is women are not going and looking to get into working in raw sewage or the STEM fields. We have to encourage women to get into STEM fields. We have to encourage women to become astronauts. We have to encourage women to do masculine male, traditionally, conventionally masculine male roles. Why is that? Because women's natural proclivities are not left to their own devices. Their natural proclivities aren't going to prompt them into those fields. That's why. And because we think we need to have some sort of blank slate equality so that we can prove that the blank slate is real, and we can prove that social constructionism is really what we ought to be basing society on, we force fit women into areas, and men into areas which they have no natural proclivities for, that they can learn to sort of override those and become good at something that might be conventionally feminine or conventionally masculine. We can do that, but it's not the natural state. There's no natural affinity, or there's no natural proclivity for those things. What did you say here? Rollo, what do you mean when you say human reproduction is below? What do I mean? Is below replacement levels could be a good idea for a future show. I have actually done that before. The replacement level in certainly industrialized nations right now is well below replacement, meaning that the spirit of the nation, let's just say the character of that particular people, that tribe that make up that nation, is dying out. Because we're not replacing, we're not putting new humans back into that country. Yeah, you're right. That would make a good. I'll put that in the great big book of everything. We'll definitely do a full episode on that.
When we raise tough boys, we cut them off from what they feel. It's like a callus. Yeah, sure. If you poke it, doesn't hurt as much.
Notice that feels is the primary, it's the most important thing in the world. Why is that? Why is it that we think that the highest attainment, that the thing that would make them perfect, these boys, what would make them perfect is if they would just get in touch with their feelings. Thank you, Gloria Steinem. She probably never even, well, maybe she has, but like we're still clinging to that 20th century, old school 20th century militant feminism that believes that to be a more perfected human is to be more emotional. For men anyways, like women have some magical power that they're automatically emotional. Well, of course they do, because they prioritize emotion before reason. Now, under natural conditions and under, let's just say, barring any influences, men will tend to go with rationality before they go with emotion. So as I was saying before, in the language or in the conversations, how men's language differs from women's language, when men are communicating, we communicate information, and then that's the content. We decide how we feel about it. It's not that men don't have emotions. We just don't have the same hardware. That our natural proclivities are not such that we will process things emotionally. Like, oh, I can't believe Aaron Clary hurt my feelings. Oh, and now let me think about what he's talking about rationally. I don't. That's one of the greatest things I think about male communication is like I can talk to somebody that I haven't talked to in months. Talk to him, say, hey, what's up? How's it going? Blah, blah, blah. What are you doing? Yeah, I got this project. You want to help me out? Let's go do this. Yeah, cool. And hang up and you're gone. And my wife or my daughter will say, are you mad at Ray? Are you mad at your brother? What are you mad? No, I'm not mad. We just got the information, said what I needed to say, got the data, know what I need to do, and now I'm going off to do it. Well, you didn't say goodbye. You didn't say, I love you, man. I'll see you, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Like, no, because we don't process it the same way that you do. I always make this joke, which is I didn't cry at the end of Titanic. Or you see these movies where like they're tearjerker movies. And women are like, oh, I can't believe you didn't cry when Jack went down to the bottom of the ocean. The movie is basically manipulating, and it's a tearjerker. It's meant to do that. You're supposed to do that. That's why you watch the movie, right? And guys are like, yeah, okay. I mean, if a dog dies in a movie, I might a little bit, but I didn't cry when Jack went to his watery grave at the bottom of the ocean, okay? But I'm this stunted, calloused human, the subhuman, because I didn't feel anything when Jack went to the bottom of the ocean. Yeah, because I know it's a movie and I can separate reality from fantasy, and I'm okay with that. Or I don't worry about like when women watch like horror movies, something that's scary or something that provokes emotion. You'll see, I think it's more difficult, and I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I think it's more difficult to provoke men to an emotional response with like a work of fiction or something. I mean, I'm not saying men aren't provoked to emotional responses. They are. Usually it's anger, right? You push somebody too far and they want to, punch you, right? There's that aspect of it. But Jack is, yeah, exactly. Jack is down at the bottom of the ocean. And you know what? Jack could have got on that board with her. There was so much room on those lifeboats, and he just decided, you know what? I'm out. Bye. And then Rose came back to him as now Jack, his body is like frozen in time immortally at 15, 16 years old. And here's Rose, and she's 106 and she dies, right? But the idea is this, is that men and women do not process emotion the same way. And I'll explain to you how that is here in a second. Here, let her finish.
But if you slice it open, guess what it can't do? It can't heal, because there is no blood flow. And without blood, there's no repair. And without repair, there's depression, there's alcoholism, there's drug abuse, there's gambling, there is disconnection from the people that they love. Check out the work of
That is like a very, very slippery slope. If we just made our boys more emotional, they wouldn't be alcoholics. Maybe they're alcoholics because they're dealing with people like you. Call me crazy. Oh, I've got to bring up a couple other things here. I do have, I want to explain something to you, because it might sound like I'm just sort of like talking out of my ass here. So I need to find you this one. Where is it? Let's see. Brain differences between the genders. Is that it? No, but I've got so many links I can look at here. I'm looking at like, cause I have like on my, when I do a book, I usually do like, I always do my homework first. I do the outlines and I have to go like look up a bunch of stuff. Where's that one? Is it, Are Wired Differently. I like this one. Is this it? Oh yeah. This is from The Guardian. This is one of my best. I don't know why this isn't more widespread, but this is from like 2000. This is like 8 years old. Okay. So this is old data. They might have something a little bit more recent, but this was, I thought, a really significant study here. I could put that. There we go. And the Chrome tab. There we go. All right. This is, by the way, this is The Guardian, but The Guardian's referencing another like larger scale study. Can you guys see that? Yeah, you can. Let me minimize myself here. I'll throw that up. There we go. Male and female brains wired differently. Scans revealed. Now, when you've probably heard me say this in the past, like when I say they have researchers, studiers, whatever, have done fMRI scans of the neural synapses between men and between women. And this is actually the reference material that I've been using really since 2013. I didn't realize it was quite that old, but this is my tried and true fMRI studies thing. And again, I know people have been asking me, like, they want me to do a full dedicated show to like all of my sources cited for different things. And yes, I always do, regardless of the book. I know what I'm talking about. It's not pulling this out of my ass. But there's so many I could give you. Like I have it. Let me see what I have. I have these carved up into, let's see. I have one that's the red pills of praxology. That's a section. I've got another one here that says boys and girls upbringing. That's a section. Emotion and reason, which is what we're getting into right now. The sisterhood uberalis. I got a whole bunch of links for that. We are all feminists, by the way. That you guys have heard me say that before. Brain differences between men and women, which is what I'm about to show you here in a second. I got tons there. Another section, mating preferences and relationship factors, marriage statistics. Ruslan, if you're listening. Wives out earn their husbands equals divorce. I've got 2 or 4. I got 4 links for that. Out of wedlock birth statistics, too many to count. Sex is binary. That's a hot topic. Sex-specific learning. I've got a bunch for that. Women versus women, empathy, oxytocin. I've got a whole slew of them on oxytocin. The epiphany phase, evolutionary psychology. As you can see, I won't belabor this, but as you can see, I've got this one right here. This is the fMRI scan. Okay, maps of neural circuitry show women's brains are suited to social skills and memory. Men's are for perceptions and coordination. Scientists have drawn on nearly 1,000 brain scans to confirm that many had surely concluded long ago, that stark differences exist in the wiring of male and female brains. Imagine that. It might be that we're just simply fucking not wired to cry at the end of Titanic, dear. Maybe we just lack the fundamental hardware, and maybe it's not disingenuous, and maybe we're not being inauthentic, and maybe it wasn't because our gym coach taught us boys don't cry. Maybe it's not actually social conventions or social construction. We just lack the hardware. We just don't have the same wiring in the similar hardware. Can we at least accept that at this point? Maps of neural circuitry showed that on average, women's brains were highly connected across the left and right hemispheres. I'll show you the scans here in a second. Where do we go? There we are. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. We're highly connected across the left and right hemispheres, in contrast to men's brains, where the connections were typically stronger between the front and the back regions. Rajini Verma, a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania, said that the greatest surprise was how much the findings supported old stereotypes. With men's brains apparently wired more for perception and coordinated actions, and women's for social skills and memory, almost like we grew up, or we evolved in hunter-gatherer societies where men needed to coordinate things and women needed social skills to rely on one another because there's safety in numbers and they are the incubators of the next generation. and women's for social skills and memory, making them better equipped for multitasking. If you look at functional studies, the left of the brain is more for logical thinking. The right of the brain is more for intuitive thinking. If there is a task that involves doing both of those things, it would seem that women are hardwired to do those better. Verma said, women are better at intuitive thinking. Women are better at remembering things. And when you talk to women, women are more emotionally involved. They will still listen more. You ever heard that? Of course you have. Of course you've heard that. You don't listen. Men don't listen. Yeah, we don't. We're not wired to listen. Not in the same way that your girlfriends are wired to listen. You know, you guys have probably heard that joke. Well, not joke, but the maxim that I say all the time, which is this, is that women have boyfriends and girlfriends. And if you're not fucking her, you're her girlfriend. Now, why do I say that? People say, oh, that's so sexist. No, it's not sexist. It's analytical. It's pragmatic is what it is. So when I say something like that, I mean that in all seriousness. Okay, you are literally her girlfriend because you are relating to her as another girl would relate to her. You're communicating on the same feminine level that her hindbrain would expect from another woman. So when guys get really, oh, I want to talk about my feelings and I want to get more emotional and I want to express myself and I want to do everything that this bitch just said that men ought to do so I don't get calloused because I don't believe that I'm actually this way, and to be more perfect is for men to be more like a woman. Well, what happens then is those men start to communicate and relate and adopt the behaviors, if not the mindset and the software anyways, of women. And what happens is that woman's hindbrain starts to interpret his communications as if he was her girlfriend. That's why, or she was they're girlfriends. That's why I say that. People get really offended when I say, boyfriends and girlfriends. If you're not fucking her, you're her girlfriend because she doesn't see you as the opposite sex. She sees you as the same sex. That's why guys get really pissed off when they make that connection too, by the way. Let me continue here. She added, I was surprised that it matched a lot of the stereotypes. Surprised that it matched a lot of the stereotypes that we think we have in our heads, If I wanted to go to a chef or a hairstylist, they are mainly men. A chef or a hairstylist. The findings come from one of the largest studies to look at how brains are wired in healthy males and females. The maps give scientists a more complete picture of what counts as normal for each sex at various ages. Armed with the maps, they hope to learn more about whether abnormalities in the brain connectivity affect brain disorders such as schizophrenia and depression. Verma's team used a technique called diffusion tensor imaging to map neural connections in the brains of 428 males and 521 females aged 8 to 22. The neural connections are much like a roadmap over which the brain's traffic travels. Okay, now why did they look at kids as young as 8 and 22? Is because those are the formative years for the brain. Usually right around 20, I think I've read studies about this as well. Right around 20, 21, 22 is when the brain begins to get to the point where it's going to be what it is. Okay. That's when that's when you fully develop your capacity for abstract thinking. The scans showed greater connectivity between the left and the right sides of brains in women, while the connections in men were mostly confined to individual hemispheres. The only region where men had more connections between the left and the right sides of the brain was the cerebellum, which plays a vital role in motor control. Maybe that's why we can throw objects better. When you say you throw like a girl, that's where that comes from. If you want to learn how to ski, it's the cerebellum that has to be strong, Verma said. Details of the study are published in the journal Proceeding of National Academy of Sciences. You can see it right there. If you want to check this out, I will put the links in there. Male and female brains showed few differences in connectivity to the stage of 13, but became more differentiated 14 to 17 years old. It's quite striking how complementary, this is where the complementary side of things comes in. It's quite striking how complementary the brains of women and men really are. Understand that? Did you catch that? Ruben Gurr, a co-author on the study, said in a statement, detailed connectome maps of the brain will not only help us better understand the differences between how men and women think, but will also give us more insight into the roots of neurological disorders, which are often sex related. Okay, so that's that. Now, if you go and you read, where'd it go? The actual proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, which I have actually read that, but it's kind of like cerebral. It's kind of like heavy shit. But what they did in that research is they also lay those brain scans on top of one another, the male brain and the female brain. And you'll notice that the complements between the two of them make for a much more, like if you had one individual that was just like that, it would make for a much different human being. We are innate, natural complements to one another. That's where that comes from. When I say we are better together than we are apart, when I say men and women are evolutionary, evolved complements to one another, that is a really good illustration of the proof of that. So, ladies, it's not because men are stunted in our emotions. It's not because we didn't cry at the end of Titanic. It's not that we don't feel emotions. We don't have the faculties that you do. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that. There is nothing, no problems that we have. We're not like Quasimodo because we don't feel the same way as you. We don't have a problem because we don't emote like you do. Maybe, oh my God, maybe there's no such thing as anima and animus. Maybe there is no masculine side and there is no feminine side, and men are men and women are women. And we have innate proclivities as a result of our evolutionary physiology, whatever you want to call it. Our endocrines, our brain wiring. I have more testosterone than my wife, right? Thank God. Oh my God, maybe there might be some friggin' differences between the two of us. And maybe the fact that you have such a problem with men and thinking that they're, stunted and wrong, or there's something very, very wrong with men because they don't emote like women. And then what happens is the minute they do, women don't want to have anything to do with you because now you're communicating and now you're behaving and now you've basically fundamentally turned yourself into a woman, just like our girlfriend, and you're no longer a viable sex partner. You're a girlfriend. You relate like a woman. You talk like a woman. You do all the things her girlfriends do. Why wouldn't her hindbrain, where do we go? Why wouldn't her instinctual lizard brain there not see you as a girlfriend if that's what you instinctually, subconsciously, I guess limbic would be emotionally, but if that's what a friend she sees, a friend you will always be. That's what Pook used to say. And it's instinctual. It's biological. It's evolutionary, my friend. I want to move on to this next one here. Let me see if I can get a couple of these comments going. Very funny. My penis brain is well developed. The little head thinks for the big head. Yeah, well, that's another way that we're wired differently. Greetings from Mexico. Buenos dias. Old school flavor. Let's see. What else? Anybody else in here? I don't think I have Sam. Do I have Sammy today? Oh, maybe I do have Sam. No, Sammy's not in. Let's see. Justin Waller has hit me up for something. Let's see. Kevin Savo is in my DMs. What else is here? Sammy and Rugby are at it. What else is going on here? Let's see. Oh, Torsha wants me to remind you all that I will be on her show tomorrow. All right, next one. Next up.
Talk about this article, The Rise of Lonely Single Men. The first two reasons point to dating opportunities, specifically via apps, saying that more men than women are on dating apps. But it's the third reason I want to talk about. Men need to address skill deficits, particularly emotional skill deficits, to meet healthier relationship standards. I heard another.
Perhaps it's because men are wired differently, bug-eyed lady.
Their creator say, when women didn't need men anymore, men needed to become likable, and they're not doing a very good job. And boy, ain't that the truth. The thing that I'm hearing from women is, you're
not doing a very good job, gentlemen. Sorry, you're not doing a good job because you're not emoting like a woman. Because if you were a more perfected human, you would be female. That's essentially what's coming out of her mouth right now. Oh, and boy, they're not doing a good job of what? Of not being emotional and not getting in touch with their feelings and not sucking it up because they're beta chumps and we don't want to have anything to do with them. They need to get in a bed. Like that was really the whole thing. I did this, by the way, the Rise of the Lonely Single Men. I did this 2 weeks ago on my Sunday show. I brought this up anyways. This was making the rounds. It's still making the rounds. There's another, by the way, there's a companion article to this that somebody just sent me on Instagram. And it's like, single women are more happy than any other demographic of women, right? It's like, hey, men are going to be these lonely, worthless pieces of shit. And women, that's okay because when you're single, you're more perfected. You don't need men. You want men. You don't need men. That's the companion article to this one, by the way, and also by Psychology Today. So what is she saying? To be more emotional, to be more like a woman, is to be a perfected human male.
We're out here leveling up. We're going to therapy. We're talking about our feelings. We're unpacking our trauma. We're doing the work. What this means is that in order for me to want to spend time with you, I have to enjoy. Notice that doing the work, like when Rich Cooper says, do the work. When any guy in the Manosphere says do the work, do you think this is do we have the same frame of reference here? Because I sure as hell don't. Enjoy my time with you more than I enjoy my time with myself. And let me tell you, that is a very high bar. Oh, did you catch that one? Because I have to enjoy myself with you more than I enjoy my time with myself. Really? So this is this is the selection. She's the highest. She's the apex choice in the global sexual marketplace, gentlemen. And it is incumbent upon you to entertain her more than she can entertain herself. And the way you do that is you become a more emotional human being. You become her girlfriend because that's going to work, right? So what the author of this paper is saying is, hey, men, go to therapy, talk about your feelings, learn some emotional regulation, figure out how the patriarchy and toxic masculinity is hurting you too. Oh, yeah. You won't be so lonely. Right. Oh, so that will cure your fucking loneliness. Yeah, smash the patriarchy that hasn't existed since the sexual revolution. Okay, get into therapy. Do the work. Well, what's the work? Glasses girl? Go to therapy sessions and cry it out. That's the work. Emotional. That's how you can stop being lonely. And you know what you should do in the meantime? You should also be more entertaining than I can be for myself. Okay, let me stop. Full stop here because this is it's like baking my brain here. I constantly see, let me get her out of there. I constantly see these, like my impressions, my suggested videos. Whenever I'm looking through YouTube, I'm constantly bombarded by these guys who are doing like TikTok videos, right? Or they're going, women, am I right? Whammon, women ain't shit. Am I right? That's pretty much might as well be the title for every last one of these, right? It's always, and I'm doing it here too. I'm mea culpa, right? I'm doing it here too. I'm looking at this and I'm going, this is this is what's making the rounds. This is what's popular in a reel. This is what's popular on TikTok. That one, by the way, the first one that I showed you of that, the space-eyed girl, that girl, that's making the rounds on Instagram. She's real popular on TikTok too. She's like a therapist. We're going to go to her to live a better life and get self-help. This broad right here, probably the same thing. But that's really where it comes from, right? That's the stand. You want to know why, like, guys, was it a Poor Man's Podcast or Darius or hell, even Fresh and Fit, right? Whoever's doing sort of like the breakdown videos. I mean, there will never be an end to those videos so long as TikTok is around. There will always be some guy going, oh my, what's this, right? Like there's always going to be those reaction videos, and those reaction videos are rooted in one thing: this disbelief on the part of women that they are entitled to a guy who's more entertaining than she can be entertaining of herself. I've got a dildo. I can use it. Unless you've got a dick that's outclasses my dildo, I guess we're okay. I guess then I'll actually consider like returning your call. Or you go and take me rock climbing, or you take me, wave on jet skis or skydiving or something like that. And then maybe I'll think about it. Really? And then, of course, what happens? What's the logical conclusion of this? Well, she's going to be single and childless. And, according to Morgan Stanley, she's never going to get married. She's never going to have kids. And somebody just asked me about the fertility rates. Well, there's a real fucking good example.
I love it when I love it when like women like this or guys who are in the sort of female gynocentric mindset, they're just dumbfounded by the fact that we have like fertility rates. Like when Elon Musk was talking about this not too long ago, they're just dumbfounded by the idea that we're below replacement level fertility rates. How did this happen? It must be men's fault. It must be society's fault. It must be everybody's too fat. It must be phytoestrogens in the water. It must be the lack of testosterone. It must be anything else in the world except for the social shifts, the catastrophic social shifts that have happened since the sexual revolution. That couldn't possibly be it. That could gynocentrism. What? What? I can't even pronounce it. They don't, it's like, it's a foreign thought, because to do anything that will be against the feminine imperative, and you've probably read me talk about that in my first book, to do anything that is like not, that doesn't align with the female experience is incorrect. To not think like a woman is incorrect. To think like a man is like heresy. But if you're not if your default as a guy is not, if you don't make women your mental point of origin, which is what we do when we create our boys raised as defective girls, that's lesson 1 on day 1 for that 5-year-old boy. Think like a girl. Don't make yourself your mental point of origin. Make girls, mommy, your future wife, your girlfriend, your sister, and like the female primary social order. Make that your first thought. That's why guys are still like married dudes that can't figure out why their wives won't fuck them. It started at 5 from their female teachers, teaching them not to put themselves as their mental point of origin and put women on that pedestal. Womankind, I should say, on that pedestal. The sisterhood on the pedestal. And it starts very, very early. And that's why that's why you want to know why I always say that, unplugging guys, chumps, unplugging guys from the matrix is dirty work. That's why, because you're talking about like regressing all the way to when that man was 5 years old. That's how far back you got to go. I mean, ideally, effectively, anyways, they have to unlearn things that they were started to learn from their female teachers back at 5 years old. That's why. And so the idea that boys are stunted and we've got to give them Ritalin or we've got to give them Adderall, we've got to drug them in some way because they're acting like boys do, like little boys do, and they all suddenly have autism or ADHD or behavioral issues. And instead of getting men in there to teach these boys how to be men and to like take that and channel that energy as little boys will, we say, go to timeout, Johnny. Here, take your drugs, Johnny. Here, you have a problem, Johnny. There's something wrong with you. You're not like a girl. If you could be more like Johnny, you're in timeout until you can learn to be more like Susie. And if you're not going to be like her, then I'm going to put this drug in you and you're going to like not care about anything. We're going to help you get focused. That's what that comes down to. And that's why this is the peak. This is peak fucking arrogance.
I want to talk about this article, The Rise of Lonely Single Men. The first 2 reasons point to dating opportunities, specifically via apps, saying that more men than women are on dating apps. But it's the third reason I want to talk about men.
Yeah, sweep that one under the carpet.
And need to address skill deficits, particularly emotional skill deficits.
Notice that it's a skill. Notice that the terminology she's using is emotional skills. Like you can go to fucking class and learn those skills. Like you can go to a trade school and learn emotional skills, right? Like with welding, and you got the next kind of welding 101 and emotional skills 101. Because to her, that's all about social constructionism. It's because we've taught men not to be more like women. And so therefore they've got to go to class and they've got to go to therapy. We've got to find some, again, that's just the continuation of Johnny, here's your Adderall.
To meet healthier relationship standards. I heard another creator say when women didn't need men anymore, men needed to become likable, and they're not doing a very good job. And
okay, no, they didn't. When women didn't need men anymore, it was because the beta buck side of hypergamy was taken care of. The long-term security, the provisioning, the protection, and the parental investment. Once men became superfluous to that side of hypergamy, that's when women were independent of men. Had nothing to do with any of this other bullshit about being likable. being likable to a woman, you know, here's how you be likable in this sense. You fucking get to the gym, you turn into Giga Chad, and you turn into the alpha that women want to share because they got no fucking use for a guy who's the best provider, protector, parentally invested. Those guys are boring. Those guys are betas. Those guys are, at least perceptually, I'm not saying they are, but I mean, perceptually, that's where she's at. To be likable is to be freaking Jason Momoa, man. It's to be hot as fuck that she wants to have sex with. And of course, you know, she being the top, the apex alpha female deserves that guy, of course. But the likability, it's not about emotional skills. It's more about getting in the squat rack, right? It's how much can you bench? That's what makes you likable in this sense.
Boy, ain't that the truth. The thing that I'm hearing from women is, we're out here leveling up. We're going to therapy. We're talking about our feelings. We're unpacking our trauma.
Okay. So to level up, ladies, do you agree with me? I don't know how many women I have in the audience right now, but let's say Torsha, I don't know if you're here. Let's see, Ali, whoever is, Soralita, whoever's watching, to level up, to do the work. Does that mean unpacking your trauma? Does that mean going to therapy? that sounds like, yeah, it sounds like malarkey to me. Yes. But it also is, but know where that's coming from. That is, we're doing the work. We're leveling up. We're doing what we ought to do to get in touch with our emotions and to be more emotionally whole. First of all, there's no end goal to that. Like self-help is primarily a female dominated category in literature. Let's just be honest here. But the thing is when she talks about leveling up, she's not talking about it in terms of like getting your game on point. Oh, money muscles game, right? That's leveling up to guys. Getting the trifecta right there. Leveling up in girl world is unpacking your trauma, is getting to therapy. We're doing the work and you're not doing it. You're not keeping up your end of the bargain, guy. That's why you're lonely, because we're like more perfected humans because we go to therapy and you refuse to. So there must be something very wrong with you. Drug it. I have to.
We're doing the work. What this means is that in order for me to want to spend time with you, I have to enjoy my time with you more than I enjoy my time with myself. And let me tell you, that is a very high bar.
Right. You know why? Because she got no use for you. She has no use. You know what do you think? What do you think would constitute enjoying her time more with you as a man than it would be for her to be by herself and enjoying her time by herself? What do you think? What activities would that include? What would that? What does that look like? My time with you, bug-eyed glasses lady. What does that look like? Like, tell me, how do I be a better man for you? How do I make your time more enjoyable than you just being by yourself? And does that change over time? Will that change when you're 45? Will that change when you hit menopause? Will that change when you're 65? Tell me, do you even think that far ahead? Because I don't think you're thinking that far ahead. You need to, so in order to do the work, you have to be more enjoyable of an experience for her, spending time with you, than the experience of her being by herself. Okay, so what I would like to do is if I had her here in studio, I would say this. What does being by yourself look like? And what does being with a guy who can measure up to your expectations, what does that look like? What are those two dates? The date with you by yourself versus the date with me, right? With a guy. What does that look like? I guarantee you she hasn't even thought that far ahead. But this is the message. She's still you want to know, remember what we said before, where do you go to get an education? She thinks she is educating men about this. She believes she's an influencer in this sense. And now you know why I bristle at that word, at that term. Because she thinks she's right. She's confident in her ignorance. She's confident in her nonsensical take on life and emotions and men. And to the point where she's willing to go and get so indignant and think and be conceited enough to think that enough people would watch this and go, bravo, yes, men need to be more enjoyable than spending time alone. That's where she's at in her head right now. So I got one more for you before we get out of here, but I got a doozy for you. This next one's going to be great. Let's see. Do I have anybody else that I'm trying to get back to? What is this? This is good. I would say evidence we are doing our work is that we're not pursuing women. Pursuing is one thing, but being the best version of yourself is always its own reward, my friend. Education is always its own reward. Diligence, persistence. I'm going to wax philosophical here for a moment. All of that is its own reward. Intelligence is its own reward. Education is its own reward. Creativity is its own reward. And until you can like look at it in those terms, because I don't know where I read this, but it's like all labor leads to profit in some way, but idleness leads only to sorrow or only to poverty. So what are you doing? And he doesn't necessarily, you don't say, oh, I'm doing it for me. I don't care if you're doing it for you or you're doing it for you and the possibility of maybe you're going to get laid because you're doing something. I don't think that it needs to be an either or proposition in that sense. But there's a million guys right now who, there's a lot of guys who will watch that and watch my take on it and they'll go, oh, Rollo's turning black pill. All right, get her. No. Don't look at this as sort of some confirmation that I'm saying, okay, just give up. Just don't give up on her. Give up on that kind of a bitch. Give up on that mentality. But don't stop doing what you're doing. Don't stop calling that shit out too. The reason I do this kind of stuff, I'm not giving you prescriptions here. I'm not saying what you should do. But when I offer that kind of stuff to you, or I offer my analysis like that, or I give you my take on things, it's meant to illustrate a larger point, okay? As I said in the beginning of this video, when we're looking at instinct, emotion, and reason, emotion is the highest level of being for women. You hear it in our popular media. You will hear it in songs. You will see it in movies. You'll see it in the pop culture. You'll see it in religion. It's all about the love. It's all about the feels. Here's the thing that will kill that conversation immediately. I can control your emotions right now. I can give you can go get drunk and your emotions will change. I can change your emotions through chemicals. I can change your emotions through stimuli. I can change your emotions just by like triggering parts of your brain that'll piss you off or they'll make you feel love. Right? If I inject you full of oxytocin, whatever, you're going to feel differently. There are mood altering substances, clearly. Some of them we pay for a lot. But I can change your emotional state with a chemical. How magical is your fucking emotions if I can do that? It's not metaphysical if I can physically change your emotional state. So what happens is women say, oh, we're doing the work. We're going to therapy. We're doing all this stuff. We're talking it out. Yeah, with other women who are psychologists in a gynocentric social order, you're doing the work according to gynocentric emotionalism. Yeah, I'm sure that seems like a lot of work for you. And now you're pissed off at guys because they won't do that same work because they don't have the same freaking mechanics. They don't have the same machinery that you do. Fuck you. I'm not going to deal. It's like, so what I'm saying is like, that's the apex. That's where that women rationalize that men need to be. Men need to be more emotional. Men need to be more in touch with their emotional side. And the only reason, she can't argue again. She's not the only one to do this, but she can't argue against the fact that men kill themselves at 3.5 to 5 times the rate, depending on whose numbers you look at, more than women. Oh, poor baby. That's going to be the first thing that's going to come out of their mouths, right? Well, the reason why poor baby or, oh, we got a tough life, huh? Suck it up, buttercup. Take it on the chin, man. The reason why that's the response is because that's the innate conventional response for men who, like, when a woman cries and a man cries, there's completely different responses, man. Women are disgusted. Like, there's a revulsion response that women will say, well, when a man cries, I want to be there for him. Blah. It's so great when he's vulnerable. Yeah, that only works if women condition themselves to understand that. And I'm not saying women can't be sympathetic. They can't be good counselors. They can. They have to get past that revulsion response. They have to be able to, like, oh, God, this guy's crying. Oh, it's pathetic. This guy's pathetic. But it's okay. You're going to be all right. That's why you go to your boys when you're upset, not when you go to women at all. because you're dealing with men on a different level. It's not about like doing the work and going and unpacking our trauma and shit like that. Unpack your trauma in the fucking gym. Unpack your trauma with your guys. Go and do the work. If that's what you think is the work that you need to do, go do it with your guys. Don't do it with women at all. End of story. What did you say? Men want women, but they do not need them. Well, I disagree. I think both sexes need the other. As I said, we are innate natural complements to one another, but we will never realize that, and we will never make that connection, and we will never be able to reconcile the shit that's going on between both men and women until we can accept that it is not about social constructionism. We are not blank slates. Men and women are different. You can't even have the conversation. Can't have that conversation right now. I know, I don't know if he's watching, but I know Glenn Lawrence is a friend of mine now on Instagram. He's going to go and he's going to debate Kevin Ray Wilder. I believe that's going to be like next debate. That'll be next Tuesday. I don't know if it's on his channel. I don't know where he's going to do it, but I'll let you guys know when it happens. But like one of the first things I told him, I said this, like, I'm not going to deal with this bullshit. I don't deal with fucking Alex from Playing with Fire, fucking, disingenuous, shysters, shills. But I said, if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. But I said, here's where you should start. You need to establish from the outset, and this is for men with a feminized way of thinking and as well as women. You need to establish from the outset, are men and women different? Are we different? And if you agree with that statement, how different are we? What is it that makes us, where's the differences in there? Is it just like, the plumbing and everything else is the same? That's bullshit. We are inherently, down to the molecular level, down to our blood, gendered. That's why when I hear like these, what was it? The therapist? It was the teacher that was on the Dr. Phil show when Matt Walsh was on there. I think she was a teacher. She was a professor at one school, like a gender studies professor. And of course, you'll hear this constantly because the left and progressives, whatever, gender progressives will always say there's a difference between sex and gender. No, there's not. Gender is down to the molecular fucking level. Gender, the way we understand gender from a social perspective, is influenced from the micro to the macro. And the only reason you want to make those separations is because that's the only way you can keep it relative and subjective. And therefore you have your own identity as the bearded lady or whatever it is that you want to, whatever fantasy gender you think you are, you're furry. And we have to accept that. We have to use your language. And that's fundamentally hinges on the lie, which there's no other way to put it, the fallacy, the mistake that gender and sex are disconnected in some way. They are not. They're inherently part of the other. The conventional masculinity, the things that women, do you want to know why women feel repulsed by guys who cry or who are kind of overly weesh, for lack of a better term? It's not because they were taught that. It's because that's the gut instinct. That's this, right? That's where to go. That's the instinctive lizard brain that's coming out. And when women feel when women have instinctual understandings of a creepy guy, for example, that's like visceral. That's on the gut level. That's on the lizard brain level. That's fight or flight level. When they feel like creeped out by a guy, that is self-defense. That is a survival adaptation, because if they don't feel creeped out by that guy, they could get raped, they could get killed, they could certainly have that, let's say, their sexual selectivity. They could certainly have the choice of hypergamy taken away from them by the creepy dude. So when a woman sees a creepy guy in the park staring at kids at on the playground or something like that, she feels something different than I do when I see that. Right? I go, I might be a little sketch about that guy and want to like shoot him. There's certain ways that guys get creeped out, but the creepiness that I feel when I see another, or it could be a woman too, by the way, but mostly we think of creeps as men. Women feel creepiness way different than guys do, because women have a vested evolutionary instinct for that creeped out feeling. Okay. When women talk about that, when they say, it just gives me get away from me, that's sexual revulsion. Women feel sexual revulsion way more commonly than men do. And men don't understand why, because we're opportunistic breeders and women are not. They have to be selective about things. But when women get creeped out, that's an instinct. And so when that instinct comes into play and we talk about it in a social perspective, we have more respect for it than we do when we say, well, men are built this way. Men's instincts are this. And we go, well, it shouldn't be that. You should do the work and you should be more like a woman. How come you can't feel creeped out by this guy like I do? Because I'm not fucking wired to do that. That's not me, man. That's not how the machine is built. And I expect that woman to understand that about me just as much as I would expect a man to understand that the way she feels about that creepy dude. You gotta understand that if you want to have the sexes come together and be natural, innate complements to one another, it has to go both ways. And the only way you get to that is if you can say to that person, do you think that men and women are different? And if they say yes, then fine. We can start from that perspective. If they say no, gender and sex are separated and, we're all just blank slates and we're all just the same versions of each other and we're functional equals, I can't have a conversation with that. And neither can you, because you're not talking to somebody who's in their rational mind. They're in their fields. So what do you want to have? Do you want to have an emotional argument or do you want to have a rational argument? I will always opt for the rational, objective argument, debate, whatever it is, a conversation. All right. Let's see. You don't necessarily have to give me a super chat for me to put it up. What is this? This is weird. I'm not looking at you weird. I got one more thing for you here. Now, God, this is going to be This is going to be a little rough. This is, and I don't know this woman's name. She did a break. She says, "Why do women hate Andrew Tate?" And she did about almost a 3-hour, actually over a 3-hour podcast on Andrew Tate and why women hate Andrew Tate. Blah blah blah. Well, join the club, okay? Now, primarily, the reason why women hate Andrew Tate is because they're in their fields. What he says doesn't make them feel good. What I say doesn't make women feel good. It's the first thing out of Michaela Peterson's mouth. Sorry, go drink. Michaela Peterson. But I don't make them feel good. That's not my objective when I'm here. I'm here to educate. Where do guys go get a well-rounded education? Well, that's what I'm trying to do, is give you a well-rounded education. But when women have a problem with Andrew Tate, and by the way, I had this conversation with Jedediah Bila that I'm about to, a lot of that sort of dovetails into this next segment here. I think she's coming around. I think she understands the perspectives a little bit better because she's taking the time, because now it's not just like the 30-second buzz clips anymore. She's actually like trying to understand and get behind this. I might do another, if she asks me, I would be glad to do another show with her. Actually, the last one was fantastic. We actually had a pretty decent conversation. And I think that the reason why you get this sort of visceral hate from women. And by the way, Mark Savo just went around, Central Park? This time it really was Central Park. They went to, I hope I'm saying this right. They went and they did on the scene, kind of like asking girls questions in the park kind of thing. And of course, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, do you agree with Andrew Tate? I'm like, well, yeah, I do. I think he's got a lot of good things to say. This interview's over. Like, they don't want to talk about it, or they hate on him, or they want a chance to sort of like mouth off about that. Again, because it comes from a position, in a primary sense, it comes from a position of emotionalism. So this is the Authentic Observer. If anybody knows what her real name is, I don't know, but she's got a fairly, what's she at, 58,000 subs. The Authentic Observer, her avatar picture looks just absolutely pathetic. She's from the UK, at least from the accent anyways. What she got on here? I think somebody sent this to me because they wanted me to actually kind of sound off about like her like take on feminism. And then I noticed that she had some other, I'm looking at her channel right now. Here, I'll actually, let me just show you the channel here. This is the casual show. So let's look this up real quick. Chrome tab and Authentic Observer. So this is her channel. You can see that. There we go. Put this over here. And oh God, she's got Vouch on here too. Let's see. So is romantic fantasy realistic? Masculinity, bad boys love, and humanity. Because to be more like a woman is to be more human. Can women love? Well, I bet you anything. That's probably a bastardization of Iron Rule of Tomasi number 6. Bad boys, hot or just weak? Well, I can show you the stats that show you that women love hot bad boys. We are failing young women. What else is there? Vouch says, I want to be sexually harassed. 120,000 views on that one. And she's got 58.4 thousand subs. So that was probably a hot one for her. I love doing this. I love doing these analysis with you guys. Oh, here we go. The Desecration of Femininity, 307,000 views on a channel with 58.4 thousand subs. So she's definitely not buying subs. What else is here? You'll notice that some of these, I've always wanted to do this. You'll notice that some of these topics will generate more views than others. Like Vouch, of course, is going to be huge. But Andrew Tate, that's just a gosh. I'm actually surprised this one didn't go bigger. Take the red pill, which is the one we're going to kind of dig into a little bit here because I wanted to address one particular topic here. But you can see this is what she's about. God, her thumbnails are all over the place. You really need some. I don't know what your name is, Authentic Observer Girl. You really need some. Yeah, get me to do it. I'll do your thumbnails for you. Damn. Her oldest video is from 5 years ago. So she's been doing this for a while. Let's see, 13 days ago, 5 days ago, 10 days ago. So you get the idea. That's who we're dealing with right here. Again, I don't know what her name is. Somebody give me your name. Did somebody put it up in here? What is this? I don't get it. She feels like she serves an important mission that is the only thing that matters as far as she's concerned. Of course she is. Hey, welcome, my friend.
She's not a Christian.
She's also not a Christian. Let's see. Pearly Things is better than her, than the Authentic Observer. Whatever. Let's see. Pearly is a classic, traditional, yada, yada. Okay, I'm going to show you this one. I thought this was pretty interesting. I'm going to riff on this for a little bit, but then we're going to get to the point where she gets, I'll cue it up to the point where she talks about responsibility versus authority, because she really grates at this. So
to late August, when is it? Yeah. But I'm starting to, it's still warm. You can just feel autumn coming. And autumn, I love autumn. Autumn always brings good things. I have a good feeling. I feel like there's something.
She's the top she
On her.
Oh.
The next couple of months I feel there's change in it, and not just because of autumn. There's something.
All right.
There's a stirring. There's a stirring in the air. There's something.
Keep going.
Couple of months, I think it's gonna be interesting.
Do it.
Let's see. Anyway, so that's why I'm in a good mood. I don't know. Let's get into it. Sorry.
Analysis.
Starting with a couple of Andrew Tate's arguments that are shit.
Here we go.
So before I get to the part where Andrew Tate can prove my point, I wanted to talk about this argument he has that he says a lot. I've heard this quote before, and I'm now going to offer my argument against it, because a couple of people have left it in my comments section thinking it's some kind of like dunk on me, which, okay. This quote is everywhere. That men should have authority over women because men have responsibility towards women, and responsibility without authority is slavery. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. If you can look me in the eyes and honestly tell me that you don't believe women have any responsibilities towards men.
Here's me looking you in the eye. That's not what it says. Here's me looking you in the eye. You're misinterpreting the whole fucking thing. Yes. As predicted, as I would expect. Let's keep going.
Fine. At least you're logically consistent. But most of you don't actually believe that. You just like saying that because it sounds cool. I hear loads of people mindlessly parroting this talking point, really acting like it's some irrefutable golden argument that owns the women every time, just because Andrew Tate said it once and said it with enough confidence that it tricked everyone into believing it's the most mind-blowingly enlightened thing about gender dynamics they'd ever.
Stop right there. Oh, that's a great cut. Somebody screen capped that one right there. Stop right there, young lady. I'm about to ruin your day. Yeah, well, Andrew, by the way, I talked to Andrew before I talked to him this morning, actually. And I, as you may or may not know, I'm in personal contact with him. We text each other, and I mentioned I was doing the show. I also, yeah, that should be the thumbnail, isn't it? And believe it or not, and I'm sure he would probably be the first one to cop to this, Andrew did not come up with that phrase. In fact, I did not come up with that phrase. Even that was actually from Turd Flinging Monkey from as far back, I believe, as 2016. Credit where it's due. But this is actually where I started authority, male authority, responsibility versus authority is slavery. That's where this comes from. Male authority, provisioning, and duty. When 2018, gosh, November of 2018. Men bear, B-E-A-R, all the responsibility when it comes to a burden of lack of performance. If you get no play, women, on the other hand, can get engaged and taken care of for being pretty privilege, right? Ask Tori about that. Women can live a good life being delusional and survive around here. Yep. All they have to do is
say my name.
All you have to do is follow along, play the home game. Oh, where'd you go? Well, that's part of it, Tori. Yes. The war part. That was. It's funny. That's I think that was the one gotcha question I actually managed to fit in when I was on my first interview with Jedediah, who I actually like a lot better now. Turd Flinging Monkey, yes, he's still around. I think he's on BitChute still. But anyways, this male authority and provisioning, this is where I started talking about responsibility without authority is slavery. And the reason why I came to that conclusion is simply because that's the definition of slavery. Can you give me another definition? Because I'm all ears. I'm all eyes. That's where it comes from. If you'd like that link, I think I will. I'll put that in the description so you can look at that. It was from 2018, and I could read it to you, but so because I originally started it in from the perspective of egalitarianism, and that's where I kind of developed that. The rest of, really, it was the germ of the idea was Turd Flinging Monkey. Not that's him. But I took it and ran with it in that essay and some other essays as well. So really, that's where it's coming from. So I'm not saying, hey, I'm glad like I said, the red pill's open source. Go ahead and be all you want. But again, her interpretation of this is completely corrupted. So let me add her back.
When actually, it's a load of utter bollocks.
Okay,
Tate talks a lot of shit, guys. You don't have to believe him just because he's cocky.
Okay, the delivery is one thing, but what do you disagree with?
I can't actually believe so many people fall for this line, to be honest. Smart people as well, like intelligent people. Even the first time I heard it, I thought, no, they're not seriously using that and thinking that is a convincing argument, are they? Surely.
That the phrase itself, my dear, is not about... Not going to get a Cockney accent. It's not about authority and responsibility. Bollocks. Sorry, with apologies to Troy Francis. It's not about that. It's about the idea that men are still expected to perform and to be responsible for old order responsibilities, for old order duties, loyalty, anything pretty much that all the old order way, all the old things, all the old ways, chivalry, right? All of the old terms, all the love that we used to get for being conventionally masculine. When women need that, then we call that's the old order, right? That's the responsibility. Men must be responsible for women. Men must be responsible for children. Men must be responsible for themselves. Men must produce. Men have a burden of performance. Men must become, women just are. How about, I can't wait till she does that one. But that's the thing, is we still have old order responsibilities, but we are effectively gelded. We have had our teeth blunted. We have had the nails pulled from our hands with respect to authority. We're expected to be able to make up for this responsibility. And I would tell this to Candace Owens and any other trad con for that matter, when we talk about, men just need to be more responsible, and then we would save the West and we wouldn't be in this degenerate society. And the reason why women are the way they are is because men won't take responsibility. Well, the problem is they can't take responsibility if they don't have the authority to affect that fucking responsibility in the first place. How am I supposed to take care of how am I even supposed to want to have a kid or a family if I begin from the perspective that I'm not going to be the authority in that family? Now, I don't mean to run Jedediah up the flagpole, but I need to use her for a quick example here. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, you're correct, but we'll get to that. Now, when I was talking to Jed at the end of our conversation, by the way, if you want to watch this, it's on her channel. But towards the end of it, she was explaining to me how she and her husband were equal partners. Or she would say, oh, it's a partnership. Our marriage is a partnership. And then I said this, and it was just matter of fact, because this is just, I am the game, right? It was matter of fact. And I'm like, well, why don't you just refer to it as a marriage instead of a partnership? Because it's much more than just a partnership. It's a marriage. I mean, that's the only terminology I can think of. And it kind of, I couched it in these terms. I said, well, calling it a partnership, I said, homosexual couples call their marriages partnerships too. How is your marriage different than theirs? Like, would you say there's a qualitative difference between those two? I don't know. We never got to that question. But I would argue this is that when women are the head of the household, when women believe that they are the authority in that marriage, they call it a partnership. But when a woman acknowledges that the man is the primary authority within that partnership, in that marriage, or that arrangement, she calls it a marriage. Like Eva Mendes and what's the other guy's name? I can't remember. It wasn't Jake Gyllenhaal. Who was it? Eva Mendes was saying, I didn't want to have kids until I met him, and now I want to have his kids. He's the primary. He's the one. He answers this question: is he the best I can do? Oh, yep, he's the best I can do. And so that's why she said she didn't want to have. I'll go and get the phrase for you here in just a second. But what she's failing to understand, she bristles at the idea that her logical fallacy is going to be this: she's going to answer a criticism with another criticism. Women and a female mindset always does this because it begins from the perspective that men and women are equal, or should be equal, that we're blank slate equals, that men and women are not different. And so what happens is whenever you hear someone say, well, men are hypergamous too. No, they're not. Only women are hypergamous. Men make comparisons. We want to be sexually selective, but only women are hypergamous. Why do you say that, Rollo? Well, because it presents a false equivalency. Okay. Women want men at or above their sociosexual ranking. Okay. If they're a 6, they want a 6.5 or a 7. And if they get with a 6, that guy better have a lot of value added to make up for the fact that she wants to get with a 7. That's the difference between us. Men, on the other hand, do not have an attraction floor. No one's ugly after 2 a.m. Men are opportunistic breeders. We'll go slump busting. We'll go whale hunting. Men have fetishes. I can go through that one all over again too. But the problem is that we think that what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I know that's an old saying, but what it means is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. No, there's not. Not when it comes to intersexual dynamics. Because why, children? Why?
Hello there, children. How's it going?
Because men and women are different. We have different brains, as I've proven to you, and I could give you a whole lot more than just that. So the machine is different. The emotions are different. This whole schematic here, did I get it? Oops. That whole thing is different. Okay. I can show you the fMRI studies again if you'd like, the connectivity. So when you say, well, this is saying this. This is saying that women don't have responsibility. No, that's not it at all. This doesn't, preclude responsibility for women. It's just saying that men don't have the authority to affect the responsibility that women think they ought to have, and men, by the way, too. So,
not. So, I hear this a lot, that because men are expected to protect women physically, the equal trade-off is that women have to do what they're told because men risk their safety for women.
Okay. Good starting point. Let me let her finish because I'm about to fuck up the program here.
Okay. That's backwards and yet again totally overlooks the actual role of the feminine. The reason I got pissed with the feminists in the first place, one of the reasons I decided, I'm kind of done with this, was because they trampled all over femininity and didn't value it. But I'm finding that a lot of you guys on this side of things are just as fucking bad despite claiming to value the feminine. Honestly, you wind me all up, the lot of you. Get in the bin. Protection.
Get in the bin, you bloody wankers.
Exchange for obedience is not the equal trade-off. I'll tell you what the equal trade-off is.
There is no fucking equal trade-off. We're different. That's the trade-off. There is no equality. Reality has a sexist bias. I'm about to prove it to you here in just a moment.
Women bear the responsibility, can't believe I have to say this, women bear the responsibility for bearing and nurturing new human beings.
So then you agree that there is a difference between men and women, that women are the incubators of the next generation. Am I right or am I wrong?
Everything about our bodies are formed around that. Our bodies are formed to grow and nurture small human beings, and thus the sacrifice nature makes to ensure we can do that is that we are not as physically strong.
Mm-hmm.
The energy that went into building us went towards another purpose. Our bodies are built for growing life, not for strength.
Right. So perhaps there's no equality, the equal trade-off in all of this. Maybe you just got the shitty luck of the draw.
Men's bodies, on the other hand, don't carry that burden, so they are built for strength, because everything can go towards that, okay? And for running faster, and whatever else. God, I heard someone saying this as well, one of these red pill guys, that women want a man superior to them in every way, stronger, taller, etc.
Yeah, his name was Patrice O'Neill. I said it. I wish I had the echo effect. Patrice O'Neill. Yes, women want a man who is stronger, taller, tougher, six-pack abs, six-figure income, like 12-inch dick. I don't know, whatever else, a 6'6". They want a superior guy. They are entitled to the superior guy now, anyways. It's certainly in a global sexual marketplace. They're entitled to that guy, but they want that guy to think that he's her equal.
And that because men are superior, we should do what we're told.
No one is saying that.
I've also heard Tate say this, that men are superior. And I'm bored.
I certainly, I think contextually wise, he's probably if she heard this, she probably got a 30-second buzz clip that was out of context, because that's how we make money today on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram Reels and everything else. Had she taken that in context, I think she would have a different opinion, because I'm about to fuck up this program.
It's boring. You bore me. If you're going to be a cunt, at least try and be original about it. It's an unintelligent thing to say. It is just as unintelligent as when the misandrists say that women are better than men. That is not an intelligent or interesting statement, that one sex is superior to the other, and I'm getting pretty sick of hearing it, to be honest.
Right. But yet you still want there to be an equal trade-off in all of this. See, that's the problem, that she's not, maybe she's not stupid. I don't think she's stupid. I think she's just ignorant, or I think she's just she's ignorant of the background or the context. I mean, like I said, it's really hard to give an elevator pitch for the red pill, right? So if you hear these buzz clips, you're going to get offended by this. I'm sure. Like I have heard this as well, right? oh, men are superior, women are like shit. I mean, hell, I can show you the cover of Elle magazine. I can actually go get it. I can show you the cover of Elle magazine with Oprah Winfrey on the cover of it. And the quote from Oprah is this: boys need to be taught that women are their equals, girls are their equals, and in some cases, they're superiors. If all I took was that and said, okay, that's feminism. Is that feminism? Superiority, female supremacism. Is that what feminism is about? How many women would disagree with me? How many women would agree with me? Right? Yes, it doesn't. So I'm going to, before she goes on, I kind of need to opine about this because I got what time? We're at 2:13 right now. I'm going to read something to you. I've read this before in the past. I don't know how else to explain this to you guys. This is a passage from my book Religion, which this comes up quite often. So I figured I better bring this up again. Once again, I present to you, ladies and gentlemen. Where does it go? Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the greatness of big head babies. Here we go. This is from my 4th book. There's a chapter in it called Crisis Masculinity, and about the center of that chapter is big head babies. Okay. And why would they need men at all? Women. Most women fancy themselves as alpha females by order of degree. But they never really understand that the strong, independent woman brand they identify with is based on a masculine dynamic. Essentially, they're alpha females with breasts and alpha males with breasts and vaginas. It's hard for women to give up that fantasy, especially when they live in an era when men are portrayed as vile, stupid, untrustworthy, and dependent on women's unique feminine powerfulness to save them from themselves. This is an old order narrative, and it instills a sense of empowerment in women based on false narratives. Okay. I will get to you. I'll scroll down here a little bit. The realities of our ancestral past dictated that women and their offspring were dependent on men for protection from a chaotic and dangerous world. That need for security is something women still innately seek in men today. But why? Here's why. Because human babies have huge heads. That's why. Eggs are expensive and sperm is cheap. If you haven't even a marginal interest in intersexual dynamics, you've no doubt heard this or read this somewhere. Even if you haven't, if you are a religious reader, or you probably have some learned instinctual grasp of men's duty for sacrifice, responsibilities, right? That's what a duty is. Particularly tradcons want men to be men, and for the golden era and long for the golden era of traditional gender roles. But how did we get to those roles in the first place? Well, a lot of guys in the new order question men's obligations for self-sacrifice in a social context. Evolution has designated men as the disposable sex, or certainly the sacrificial sex, let's just say, especially if that disposability leads to promulgating the human species. That's why we have responsibility. That's why we have a duty. That's why we have a protector's instinct. Here we go. Nature, it seems, takes far more risks with males and virtually every species in a myriad ways. Okay. But why are eggs expensive and is sperm so cheap? Beyond the obvious answer, one egg cell versus millions of sperm cells, the answer is simple. Human babies have huge heads. And it goes something like this. Human beings survive by being smart. I know that sounds counterintuitive today, but to make a smart brain, you need lots and lots of neurons. We just looked at the fMRI scans, right? To make a lot of neurons, you need to start early in the gestation process, which means human babies have giant heads. But you need to get those babies out of their mothers, so their mothers need inefficiently wide hips, sophisticated brain incubators, and a whole bunch of other expensive reproductive system modifications. Thus, human females are vulnerable and physically helpless compared to the majority of males. You have to deliver those babies early while their heads are still small enough to fit through those widened hips. As such, every human baby is essentially born premature and requires a comparatively long time to reach self-sufficiency. For comparison, An infant horse can run a few hours after being born. There's plenty of animals that can become like survival wise efficient as soon as they're born, or like within hours or within days after being born. Human babies cannot. They are fragile and they are vulnerable. In our ancestral past, a human female was a vulnerable, inefficient, weaker physical specimen who for most of her life is carrying around one or more weak and delicate offspring. Neither can run, fight, or hunt. Keep that in mind, because all of those evolutionary realities are still vestiges that are within both me and my wife, both her and any guy that she's with. Men and women still have that as part of our vestigial way of thinking. This is how we evolved for this. Okay. So once again, in our ancestral past, a human female was a vulnerable, inefficient, weaker physical specimen who for much of her life is carrying around one or more weak and delicate offspring. This is long before we had birth control and everything else, right? Neither can run, fight, nor hunt. Unlike females of other species, human females were constantly dependent on the males to what? Protect, feed, and care for them. Thus, the provisioning security side of hypergamy became a very important priority. Okay, so what's the beta buck side of hypergamy? Protection, provisioning, and parental investment. That's all of that stuff that we just read to you. As a result, human females are also acquired by proximity some of the fragility and importance of humanity's very expensive and fragile children. So men being the stronger, more physically able, more able to protect, provide. That's your duty as a man, right? Protect, provide, and be parentally invested in your kids. That's a good dad. You also got to be hot. You also got to have a capacity for violence. There's the alpha fuck side of hypergamy as well. So that woman selects you, or you're going to have sex with her, whatever. There has to be the arousal aspect of women's mating strategy, but there's also, in the long term, there is the attraction side, which is predicated on the blue pill, or on the beta side of things, which is provisioning, protection, and parental investment. You can make a case that that's just that's alpha, whatever, but those are men's responsibilities. So when men must become, women just are. For a man to become, he has to be proficient in all of those, at least those three things. Okay. Those things used to be value added when a woman was deciding whether or not she was going to get with that guy in the long term. In the 21st century, all that shit's out the fucking window. And that's why we're having this conversation in the first place. So now a problem arises in this reality. How do you prevent the males from tyrannizing the females to the detriment of the entire species? How do we keep men from being like asshats and beating up the women, right? By imbuing males with the same protective instinct towards them that women have towards children. Remember when you probably heard this before. I'm sure some black pill doomer or some MGTOW has told you this before. Women are just like children. They only mature to a certain point. They don't only mature emotionally to a certain point and then they stop. They're just like little children. You'll hear women say the same thing about men. Oh, he's just a big kid. Right. But when men say women are just like children, it has a different meaning. And that stems from exactly this dynamic right here. So women take on the fragileness, at least a part of it, just by proximity. They take on a part of that. There's an instinct, right? Remember, instinct, emotion, and reason. So by imbuing males with the same protective instinct towards them that women have towards children. So the child is frail and fragile, and we got to take care of it because it's got a big head, and it's not going to be self-sufficient. It can't feed itself. It can't run. It can't defend itself until maybe it's 7. I don't know. Whenever a kid can actually sort of feed and fend for itself, right? It's a long time, man. It's like 7 years, maybe 5 if you're lucky, but certainly 7, right? So a man has to be invested parentally. He's got to provide and he's got to protect that woman and his offspring for at least 7 years back in our ancestral, hunter-gatherer days past. Okay. So now, and how do you prevent the females from exploiting that protective instinct to take advantage of males, or from making themselves unprotectable by ignoring male guidance? By imbuing women with the same instinctive obedience towards men that children have towards women. That's the difference. Like when Allie talks about like how she defers or she submits to her husband, she's obedient to that husband. That is where the authority comes in. Okay. It's innate. It's evolutionary. Women needed to have an instinctive obedience towards powerful, worthy men. Okay. Not just scumbags. That's, you want to know why guys are creepy? Because those are unworthy men. So there is an instinct of obedience by women towards men who are worthy of that obedience, but that instinct is still there. And that's what women bristle at, that they don't like to be reminded of that. They don't like to have that like sort of exposed. They don't want you to talk about the game. They want to play the game. So a guy who's an alpha male doesn't say, I'm an alpha male, because when he does, it seems like he's trying to convince anyone within earshot that he's worthy of their respect or their breeding or their reproductive interest in that guy. That right there's a red flag for women. A guy who tries to get all cocky and everything. A guy who is actually an alpha male doesn't have to tell you he's an alpha male, because every woman that can see him can go, I want to get with that guy. All right. So by imbuing women with the same instinctive obedience towards men that women have towards women, or excuse me, that men have towards women. Okay. So because humans have giant heads, men instinctively protect and care for women. 2, women instinctively want to obey and respect worthy men. Number 3, women are to men as children are to women in terms of protection. Okay. So men protect women, women protect kids, and the men, of course, have the responsibility to protect both of them, of course. But there's that sense of innate protector dynamic so that men will instinctively put themselves in front of women that they don't know and live ammunition. That's where this comes from. And lastly, number 4, humans strive for a learned social enforced monogamy despite an innate nature that incentivizes a more efficient promiscuity as a mating strategy. So this is where I have a problem with things like poly, because I'm not saying that poly is basically this adaptation that we have in a post-marriage society, because we think we're spoiled for choice. It's the choice paradox here. But the thing is that people will ask me all the time, do you think monogamy is natural? Do you think promiscuity is natural? And I say both, because we are promiscuous by nature, but we are monogamous by necessity, by choice, but by necessity. Because if we weren't invested in monogamy, the species would not survive, because babies have giant heads. Okay, so here we go, and this will piss her off to no end. Sexism is hardwired into our species by evolution as an inevitable result of our giant heads. Every religion, social philosophy, or sexual strategy is grounded in working with these 2 instincts. Number 1, the female instinct to submit and the male instinct to protect. Got it? Got it. Traditional conservatism, tradcons, is an attempt to maximize the male protective instinct through indoctrination and social learning for the benefit of women. So when I say the reason why Matt Walsh, or the reason why you see these conservative pundits talking about the crisis of masculinity, they don't care about you. They care about solving women's problems. They want you to level up. They want you to do the work. They want you to be the best version of yourself, because if you're not, then more women are not going to be able to fulfill their hopes and dreams. That's the purpose. That's the point. That's the incentive that these guys have. Okay. So essentially what they're saying is it's an attempt to maximize the male protective instinct through indoctrination and social learning for the benefit of women. Got it? Good. Feminism is an attempt to minimize the female submissive instinct, also through social indoctrination, to enable women to more ruthlessly exploit the male protective instinct. Do you see how both of those sides, tradcons and feminism, both work in tandem to do what? To exploit the male protective instinct. That is responsibility without authority. They want you to have they want you to protect, provide, and be parentally invested, whether the kid is yours or not. In fact, it's more noble if it's another dude's kid, because you're taking over. You're the dad who stepped up, not the stepdad. That's where that comes from. So what it's doing is it's playing to your sense of responsibility, your sense of duty. And all of that is rooted in the protector dynamic that is part of your evolutionary past. That's why they both suck. Now then, the red pill is an attempt to teach men to selectively suppress the male protective instinct to avoid its exploitation by women and tradcons who are conditioned not to be submissive. That's what feminism is doing. It's teaching women to fear ever being submissive to a man, because men are untrustworthy. They're bastards. They're abusers. They're ridiculous, or they're incompetent. Never trust a man. Never do anything for the express pleasure of a man, because if like the number one thing that all the women said when they were opining, when they were commenting on Allie's TikTok video or viral TikTok video about how she defers to her husband, the number one thing was, what if he cheats? What if he goes away? What if something happens? What if he goes and fucks the secretary? Eventually, he's going to dump you, girl. So you got to have your own side hustle and you got to have your own money, and you should never trust a man with your life. That's essentially the fear, the existential fear that women have when it comes to trusting a man. And that is all from condition. You want a blue pill for women? That's the blue pill for women. Conditioning women to suppress and to avoid that submissive instinct that women want to have. Like, I want to have his babies. I forget what the name is of the chick is. He's the man. He's the one who I want to be with. He's the one I want to submit to. I trust him with my life. If a woman can't trust you with her life, how can she trust you with the kids or anything else, any other decisions? And that's where feminism starts, by instilling distrust in women so that they'll be independent of men. Because we've turned men into unreliable, buffoons. So there you go. I'll read that to you again. The red pill is an attempt to teach men to selectively suppress the male's protective instinct to avoid its exploitation by women who are conditioned not to be submissive. Even in the old order, tradcons and feminists alike worked tirelessly towards the common goal of female rebellion and emancipation from this evolved order. In the new order, men must be freed from the unconscious knee-jerk expression of their protective instincts before they can deal with women in a way that maximizes their benefit, rather than that of a stranger. A world dominated by feminism and feminist incentivized traditional conservatism is a world where men prioritize the interests of women. What did I just say? And women prioritize the interests of themselves. Solipsism. Kevin Ray Wilder. Solipsism. It's a world half full of adults who must protect children they have no authority over, and half full of unsupervised children. So think about that for a little bit while we watch the rest of this.
If you're going to continue having that argument, you can all fuck off back to the playground where you belong.
That argument comes straight from what? From teaching women to be rebellious and to expect men's protection, expect men to help you in when the floodwaters rise, expect and have responsibility for your well-being, but no authority and no deference to that man in the sense that you would trust that guy with his life, with your life.
Height, etc. are male measures of worth, you absolute ogres. And you can't measure women on the same scale. Women wanting a man stronger than them does not mean she wants someone superior, any more than a man wanting a woman who can bear his children means the same thing. Because I can play that game. How about my body is superior because I can grow an actual human being within me and then nurture it when it's born, and you can't do that?
Like every other woman since the Pleistocene era.
I don't know. Sounds like a pretty cool thing. Sounds fairly essential for the continuation of human life. What a shame you can't do that. I guess it's just because I'm superior.
Sounds like it's unequal. Sounds like there is no equal trade-off there, don't you think, Puddin'?
Hi guys, I just want to quickly say, as I was editing this, I realised how this would come across. I'm not trying to have a go at women who have infertility issues and say that makes them less valuable.
Sorry,
I promise, I'm really not trying to say that. The reason I'm making this argument is specifically against Tate's argument and the red pill argument that from a biological level why men are like fundamentally superior in their design. That's the point I'm making. I'm not suggesting that women who have infertility issues are less valuable or inferior or anything of the sort. Don't be so bloody stupid.
Okay. Whether or not men are physically superior when it comes to sports or physicality, I've done the shows in the past where I've pointed out that men evolve for combat, more or less. I can go get you the stats for that too. There's a lot of them, like larger bone density and, upper body strength, all that good stuff. I've done that episode before. That is absolutely no fucking relation to responsibility without authority is slavery. Has absolutely no relation to that. She's fixated on the idea that men and again, I don't know what video she's watched where Andrew was saying something like, oh, men are superior to women. Yeah, in a physical sense, definitely. But that has nothing to do with responsibility and authority.
Superior. No, just different. That's like saying that, I don't know, that a car is superior to a house because a house can't move. It's dumb. They're two totally different things.
No, you are off on a tangent that no one ever... No, you're on a point that no one ever made. It's a non sequitur. It doesn't follow because that's absolutely nothing that we're talking about. And the other thing is this: it's also a tu quoque, right? It's a criticism, answering criticism with a criticism. That is beside the point. That's not the point.
With different purposes. My body is not inferior to yours because you could beat me in an arm wrestle. My body is literally not formed for that.
It is. If the challenge that we're talking about with respect to equality is an arm wrestling contest, then I'm superior to you. If the challenge that we're talking about with respect to equality is bearing children, then you win, sister. You got me. I can't do it. You can. Go, girl. Absolutely nothing to do with the argument. Responsibility without authority is slavery. Get back to the point. Absolutely nothing. She's just upset and pissed off that Andrew made the observation that men are physically superior to women. By and large, men are way more superior when it comes to tests of physicality. That's it. Simple as that.
So no, I'm not defective because I'm not as strong as you. That was never nature's intention for me. It is not a design flaw. For fuck's sakes, how many times do I have to say it?
It is a design flaw if the challenge is fighting off an attacker. Then it's not as if a flaw. It's just simply that's the luck of the draw because men and women are different.
I've said it to the feminists and I'll say it to you. We're not just smaller, weaker, second-class men. You can't judge us on a male scale of power and say that makes us inferior because we don't live up to those standards.
Of course you don't. And that's not the point he was making, Puddin'.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest, boys. On a female scale of power, you're doing pretty shit and really slacking, to be honest. Not enough creating whole human beings out of thin air. Too much obliviousness, reckless decisions, and bad decorating.
Okay, so if the challenge is decorating effectively, well, there might be a few guys who will give you a run for your money, but by and large, maybe decorating is a female realm. Maybe that is a traditionally, conventionally feminine realm that women excel in. Sounds very stereotypical and very unequal to me.
Anyone seen Andrew Tate's interior design? Tacky. Maybe if he let his girlfriends have more of a say, it would look less shit.
It looks like a dude lives there. So if the criteria was a guy designing his own place versus another guy designing his own place, was he be shit? Or are the way that women interior decorate, that's the standard. That's the gold standard. That's the benchmark. That's the metric by which we should all play by. What does that come back to, guys? It comes back to the idea that the feminine way to do things is the correct way to do things. The defense rests its case, Your Honor.
But anyway, that was a tangent. I was
Yeah,
talking
hell of one
about
at
the
that.
merit of the statement, responsibility without authority is slavery. One of
Her own stupidity, because that's where she's about to go. I've already discussed this.
Tate's favorite statements. He also says, just in the same way that you have responsibility over a dog, you also have to have authority over that dog.
Mm-hmm.
Like women. Thank you, Andrew. He's charming. Okay, this statement.
Fly me to Romania.
Yes. Men risk themselves for women. And women risk themselves for children. Women sacrifice their bodies, often their health, sometimes long term, 9 months of their life, go through incredible pain, and sometimes even give up their lives to bring one child into this world. And they accept the risk of that when they decide to have a child.
Wow, what a miracle.
They know it's possible, unlikely nowadays, but possible they could die from that. That's what they agree to and take on when they decide to have a child.
Okay. How does that have anything to do with responsibility plus authority equals slavery? How?
So no, the trade-off isn't men risk themselves to protect, therefore women must be obedient for it to be fair. The trade-off is women are more vulnerable because of the responsibility they have to the next generation, and therefore men risk themselves for it to be fair.
Sounds an awful lot like responsibility and having the authority to affect that fucking responsibility, doesn't it? It's more than a man can take.
That's the actual arrangement. That's actually what's going on there.
Actually, it's because human babies have big heads. Human babies are effectively born premature. That's why. So women take on the fragility and the need for protection of the children, and men respond to that. Okay, let's go back to it one more time. How do we do that? This is the problem. How do you prevent the males from tyrannizing the females to the detriment of the species? By imbuing males with the same protective instinct towards them that women have towards children. And how do you prevent the females from exploiting that protective instinct to take advantage of the males, or from making themselves unprotectable by ignoring male guidance? How? By imbuing females with the same instinctive obedience towards men that children have towards women. Any questions, children?
That's an equal exchange. That's the balance.
There is no balance. There is no equal exchange. Men are the sacrificial, disposable sex. Women are the vulnerable sex. You can accept that, or you can refuse and go into denial and invest in Chewy.
Nature created, that's the burden each sex carries. The balance is not a woman's obedience. Don't be so stupid. You see how nature made it work?
I see how nature made it work. By what? By imbuing women with the same instinctive obedience towards men that children have towards women. That's how the species survived. At least until the sexual revolution, and everybody got it, and women got a big fucking head about it. I can live life to their children. Like every other, like your grandma and your great grandma and everyone else who came before you. So, and you know what? They also responded to that instinctive obedience to men who were protecting them and would give their lives up for them. That's why.
How she split our species down the middle, half of us formed for nurturing life, and the other half for protecting life.
Thank you, Mother Goddess. Let's continue.
Neither is superior. It
is superior if the challenge is defending yourself against a saber-toothed tiger. Women are superior if the challenge is having babies.
a fair sharing of responsibilities. Both paths have their agonies and their dangers. You're not owed something else on top of that.
No one said we were. We said we are expected to be responsible for women and children, and we are effectively clawless and toothless when it comes to authority, when it comes to decide, when it comes to, we can't even sacrifice ourselves effectively because we have cut the teeth and we have blunted the teeth and cut the claws out of men so that they can't affect that responsibility anymore. That's what the saying means, you absolute dumb cow.
Women hardly ever die in childbirth now. Yeah. And when was the last time you fought a marauding Viking to protect your girlfriend? Sit down, your bellend.
I don't know. The guys in the Ukraine between the ages of 15 and 60 might have something to say about that.
I don't think it's right when women shit on men and their role and say it's worthless compared to what women do. But I feel...
Well, they don't. They just effectively make them superfluous, which is what? Removing authority from those guys.
I feel the same about men who seem to fucking forget about all the sacrifices women make to bear their children.
Okay, so now, children, let's go and see where this is. Oh, look, it's a logical fallacy. Let's look at it here. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Avoiding having to engage in criticism by turning it back on the accuser, answering criticism with criticism. You suck as a debater. That is absolutely, first of all, it doesn't follow. And second of all, it's too okay. Oh, well, men do, men do it too, and they're worse. That doesn't fly. That's not what it's not the, you want to know why I don't debate? This is why I don't debate. People they just simply don't have any skills. Everything, again, she's approaching this from an emotional perspective, as I presented in the very beginning of this. Everything that's come out of her mouth up to this point, the reason why she's enraged and she's having an emotional reaction here is because she's rooted in an idea that equality ought to be the goal. Egalitarianism ought to be the goal. Finding some idealized state of men and women accepting their own responsibilities, and that's what we ought to be. Well, the problem is that's not, even if that could be the case, that's still idealized. That's still egalitarian. Egalitarianism is not natural, certainly not between human beings. I mean, we like altruism. That's definitely natural. Men sacrificing themselves for the survival of their kids and their girl, for the female. That's definitely part of nature. Egalitarianism, unless you're in an ant colony, unless you are an insect, egalitarianism doesn't work very well for human beings.
A mother is more than a glorified incubator for your sons. So,
all right, so I'm gonna leave it right there because she's all the. I mean, I could keep going and get you all these pithy little asides and everything, but I'm not going to do that. So there you have it. So women's emotions, their emotional states, like again. There's no, one of the things maybe I'm stupid for this. Maybe I'm like completely off in this, but in a sense, I want to hold out hope that women can learn, right? I was saying before, women prioritize it where it goes instinct, emotion, and reason. For men, it's instinct, reason, and then emotion, unless they're part of a generation that has been conditioned to prioritize emotion before reason. Okay. So given left to our own devices, men will opt for reason, assuming they can learn things well enough so they can get to that point and they can override that emotion. Or maybe they just simply don't have the machinery to think in terms of putting emotion before reason. But when we live in girl world, when we live in a gynocentric social order, we deify emotion. We make love and emotion and the female experience our gods or goddesses in this case. To be a superior human, to even be a human at all, and not be dehumanized. That's why we always talk about, men dehumanize women because they're not like women. So to be human, to be more perfected, to be an idealized entity, human being, whatever, is to be more like a woman. And why is it that we prioritize feels before reals? Because we live in a gynocentric social order and have been doing so really since the sexual revolution, since the late 60s at least. And that's why it seems natural. That's why she can't. Well, how come, we're the incubators of the next generation? But you said prior that you weren't just the incubators of the next generation. We're more than that. Okay, well, what is it? Well, she can't get her story straight because one feels good and one doesn't. It's that cognitive dissonance. What worked for one argument and what works for another argument is completely mutually exclusive. So why bother? Right? Why even, I would very much like to be able to have, I want to be optimistic. I really want to say, well, we can teach women to be more rational. We can teach women to do these. And I'm not saying you can't, because you can teach women how to code. You can teach women to do higher math. You can certainly teach a human being to do things that are instinctually, again, counterintuitive to that person. So you can teach someone to do karate, like do martial arts, right? We don't want to get in a fight, but we want to be able to be trained so that if we do get in that situation, we know what to do. Or how to drive a car. We didn't evolve to drive cars, but we can teach ourselves to drive cars, and responsibly so, right? So there's lots of ways we can sort of override our instincts with, override the firmware and the machinery with the software, but it takes time. And you have to get past yourself and get over yourself and over this idea of this emotional response, or thinking that emotion is the highest order of being. Because emotions are not God. Emotions are not divine. Emotions are not some cosmic energy, some good juju that's out in the world. No, I can change your good juju with a freaking shot of tequila. I can change I can change your mood by shooting a good, how many milligrams of Tren in your ass, and suddenly you're going to be pissed off and working your ass off in the gym. Suddenly your mood has changed, my friend. I give you some test a TRT, man. Guys on TRT, man. Oh man, I feel great, man. Look, my dick's getting up. All right, I can change your mood with food. I can change your mood with lots of things. I can change your emotional state with physical means. It's not metaphysical. So stop turning it into something like that. And the reason why we do is because we think that women wanted to think that that's the higher way of doing things. Women have never enjoyed a state in humanity that has more favored them being the organizers of society. I've made that case in a few other episodes in the past, so I won't belabor that, but women are the ones who are holding the purse strings. They're the ones making the decisions. It's not who's earning the money. It's who's allocating the money right now. Where does it go? What do we do with those funds? What do we do with that resource? Who gets to decide where it goes? Women. Who is the primary consumer in the United States and pretty much every industrialized nation? Women. Who's in control of the IMF and the World Bank and the ECB? Women. So don't give me this bullshit about patriarchy or whatever the hell it is. We gave you the keys of the castle, and what are we doing? You're going to get pissed off when we say, you know what, responsibility without authority is slavery, when we make some basic bonehead observation using rationality and reason. How dare you? How dare you make that observation? Well, I try to make this point with Jedediah Bila, because we're at a point, we're at a stage right now in humanity where emotionalism and empiricism are at constant clashing. I think that's the most obvious. You can see that in all kinds of different things, not just the manosphere, not just intersexual dynamics. It's all over the place, but intersexual dynamics is where it's like the most pronounced, I think, right now. So that's really the operative of all of this, from the chick who is making oh boy, thank you for that. What is this? I don't even know what that is. It's Mexican pesos. Keep up the great work, Rollo. Definitely spot on with the self-defense. Very important life skill to learn to defend yourself as a man and your loved ones. Keep rocking the Lambo. I will. I'll bring it on next time. It's goddamn hot. I got the Devil Mountain tank top on today. It's just so bloody hot today. All right. I think that's it for me. Anyways, I'm glad you guys have enjoyed this. I will be on with Tori and on Torsha Podcast tomorrow with Dr. O's. And I don't know exactly what we're talking about. I'm probably missing a whole bunch of these things here. What have I got here? Oh, Andrew's in. Oh, man, Andrew Tate is actually watching the stream right now. Let's see. Oh, Tori, what did you say? I just got a text from Andrew. Oh, anyways. Okay. So yeah, we're on tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific. That will be 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Yeah, 1 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be on Torture Podcast with Dr. Oz. He's also known as Dr. Red Pill. He's a Turkish cosmetic surgeon. He was the guy that I was on Myron and Fresh with. I think it was back in, pretty sure it was May or June. And good guy. I've been wanting to do a show with him for a while. So that's coming up tomorrow on her show. I'll be on for that. I am going to be hosting Rule Zero on Saturday morning, and then Saturday afternoon, I will also be hosting on this show, on this channel. I will be talking to the guys in my band and one girl in my band who we just have our new EP out, the Trial of Ascension EP. What do we call it? EP? Well, 4-song EP on Spotify that's out right now. It's called Origin. Go check it out right now. You can find the link to it in the description. I think you have to scroll down past the fold, but you'll find the link to our Spotify page, and go check it out and tell me what you think of it. I'm curious to know. If you go and you listen to, I think I can't play favorites because whenever we make songs, it's like they're all my children, and I'll love them in a special way. And like there's some that I have more influence in, or like I'll be writing, or I'll do the lyrics for, and CJ, who's the other guitarist, does the lion's share of the creative work. I'm just going to be honest, but I've done some really good stuff with him. I think this collab, we're finally kind of coming into our own with this EP. So we're going to go into the rehearsal studio. I'm going to do a live stream. We'll do a Q&A. It'll be like you finally get your Rational Metal show. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to start it off with just a Q&A with myself. Steve Bradford is our drummer. CJ Straw is our guitarist. And Livy, I'm not going to say her last. Livy I think she just wants to go by Livy. She's our singer. And then, of course, I'll be there. And I'll be happy to answer questions about music in general, life in general, how we came to things. So try to keep it music oriented. I know you animals are going to want me to help you get your girlfriend back, but that's not what the show's going to be back. And then, of course, Sunday, I will be back for my long stream show, which is Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. And then next week, I will be in Las Vegas. Next Friday, it's my week from Friday, I will be on the Mike Sartain show. That'll be in Las Vegas. Justin Waller's been on there, so I'm making the rounds. I'm going down there on the 6th, which I think is Wednesday. So I'll be down in Vegas then. I am going to be with Miguel from Dollar Cost Crypto, Cultivate Crypto, and we are going to be scouting out a new podcast studio in Sin City. So we'll be in Vegas. I'll be there for about 4 days. And then from there, I'll be flying to Connecticut again, and I will go and hang out with the Savo brothers for about a week, where I am going to be doing the primary footage for my masterclass series on book 5, which is the Player's Handbook. If you've read that book, you'll notice that in the introduction there, I mentioned that I am doing a class called the Players Workshop Classes, and it's going to be a series of videos very similar. If you're familiar with like masterclass videos, it's going to be shot in the same style. I want to do something polished. I've never done a class before. I've never done Kajabi classes or teachable classes, and this will be my first shot at something like that. But I want to do it really freaking pro. And so I want it to look more like a masterclass video rather than just like, I could shoot it right here with the background and you guys would probably be happy with it. But I want to do something that's a little more polished and really, really tight. So that's why I'm working with the Savos, because they're really good at video. So that's why I'm going out there. And then I will be back in my new studio in Reno, most likely around the 20th of September. So that's coming up. And then one last thing is I will be back in Vegas around the 20th of October, maybe a little bit before that. And one lucky holder of the Red Pill Lions NFTs will be flown to Vegas, and you and I and the Savo brothers will be going, and we will take you to a Vegas Golden Knights game. I would like to take you to a Raiders game. If I can work that out too, I might do that as well. But we're going to fly one guy, maybe two, who are NFT holders, are Red Pill Lions NFT holders. And if you're a holder, you are automatically put into the drawing. And this is part of our utilities. One of the things we do, we flew guys out to the CME. We do lots of different things. I just finished up doing some hand-signed, like autographed books delivered to holders. So it's not just an NFT, it's a community. Go check out the Discord. The link is below. I think it's the second link down here. But we're going to be doing that in Vegas on October 30th. And if nothing else, we'll definitely do some live streams, and we'll do some stuff on Instagram as well as this channel when I'm down there. But that's coming up, just to give you an idea what's coming in the future. So that's that. If you guys like this show, please let me know. Please like the video. And if you have any feedback on anything I've said, or if you want me to track down this girl whose name I don't know, I'd be happy to. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is the inception of my midweek streams. I've kind of gone on a little while. I didn't expect to go. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Okay. Podcast has been a production of the Rational Male, registered trademark 2022.